Dr. Chase? Here. Ms. Buckman?
She's here. Here.
Ms. Guy?
Yes.
Ms. Halstead?
She's
Ms.
gonna do
Rose virtual?
She's gonna do virtual and
Okay.
for the regular meeting?
Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Healy?
Here.
Ms. Randall?
Here.
Ms. Sigmund?
Here.
Ms. Solomon?
Here.
And Dr. Warner?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, we have no one participating electronically for the work session. And can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
A motion to
Second.
approve.
Okay, there it is.
Here we go.
Did you keep up with that, Misty?
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on to information items, 3.01, the proposed 23-24 school calendar for early childhood education programs.
All right, thank you for having me tonight. I am running solo because Miss Massey and Mr. Razio are at the Head Start Conference this week, learning all the things and doing all the transition from one director to another. So please be patient with me. So we're actually here to talk about giving our 4-year-old students with special needs more time. And so the calendar that you're going to see at the end and that you have looks different, but it actually represents more time than what they are currently getting. Currently, our 4-year-olds in the special education program and our 3-year-olds go to school Tuesday through Friday. And so what we want to do is match what most people around us and what most people around the state offer their students, and also offer them the opportunity to experience what a full week looks like, knowing that the year after that, they're going to school all day long for a full week. So there's some things that we need to do in order to make that happen. Because we're going to do this, we are altering our grant for BPI in order to be able to get funding for these students. You have to have students in school 5 days a week in order to get BPI funding. So we have been paying for our ECSE programs out of local funding, not BPI funding up until now. So this will allow us to do some additional innovative things. I know last time Ms. Massey was here, she talked about some other positions that she might want to be able to have one day, and this BPI funding may be able to get us there. So in addition to some additional instructional positions, we might be able to add a media specialist, a behavior support teacher, and an education coordinator. Right now we have one education coordinator that is split between North Star and Rising Star. This would allow us to have a full-time education coordinator at both sites. In both of our Head Start and our ECI programs, there is a requirement for teachers to do home visits, at least 4 home visits a year. One of the reasons that our ECSE teachers were teaching on Tuesdays through Fridays is to accommodate those home visits. But what was happening is Head Start teachers who teach 5 days a week had the same requirement, but no time to do it. And so by changing our calendar and offering days that are specifically designated for all staff to do home visits, it makes it more equitable for all staff. So we need to alter the calendar in order to represent those days that we are going to give all the teachers to do the home visits. In addition, we're going to add a couple of days for teacher work days that better match the reporting schedule for VPI and Head Start. Whereas K-12, we're in a quarterly system, our assessment schedule is more like a trimester system for early childhood and Head Start, and we have our teacher conferences, our parent-teacher conferences, at the end of each of those reporting times, and so we've designated additional time for teachers to get their reports done and have their parent-teacher conferences at a time that makes more sense for the way that early childhood works on that 12-week schedule. So these are the additional days that we're proposing adding, and really we're not proposing adding these days as home visit days, we're proposing adding instructional days on all the days except these days. Does that make sense? Because we haven't had Mondays in the past. Now we're going to add all Mondays except these into the early childhood calendar. We
Yes.
also,
Could you say that again? So-
okay, yes,
Yeah.
so your calendar right now doesn't represent what we've been doing for
Right.
early childhood, right? It's the K-12 calendar. But for 3 and 4-year-olds in in early childhood special education, they have had Mondays off every day of the school year,
Yeah.
okay?
Every-
Every Monday has been off. We are putting every Monday back on the calendar for them, but we are
Taking
taking
them.
these off
Okay,
Okay.
as work days.
okay.
So they can do the physics.
The home
So
visits.
It's still a work day.
It's
just
still
still a
work
work
day,
day, but it's just a home
for
visit
every
day.
teacher.
That's what I was
So
a
in
little
the
confused
past-
about.
Yeah, in the past, Head Start kids would go, early childhood would not
Yeah.
on Mondays. Now, nobody is gonna go on these Mondays, so that the teachers can do their home visits
Mhm.
and do their parent-teacher conferences.
Okay.
Imagine that, everybody doing the same
Gosh.
thing in the school.
Yeah.
At the
And
same
having time to do those things, how nice, that we
Yes.
actually give them time.
Yes.
Lovely idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for asking me to pause and re-clarify. In order to, so what we do when we have 3 programs under one roof is we take the most rigorous expectation of the 3 programs and apply it to all of them. So in order to meet the minutes that we need to meet for Head Start and VPI, we need to add 15 more minutes in the school day because we're taking off these Mondays. Okay,
Okay.
so our bell schedule is gonna change by 7 minutes in the morning and 8 minutes in the afternoon.
Okay.
It will do nothing to transportation because our buses already arrive and the kids are already in the classrooms by these times in the morning. And, so it's really just a matter of, showing,
Documenting what we're
documenting what we're already
already doing.
doing.
That does make sense to me. So how is it that we're adding 15 minutes per day, but it has no effect on transportation?
Because right now at North Star, the buses arrive at 7:30, 7:35 in the morning, and the teachers are getting the kids off the bus because we can't leave 3 and 4-year-olds sitting on a bus to wait for that 7:37 start time, or 7:45 start time. And so they're getting them off the bus and getting them into the classrooms already and with the students. So we're just documenting better the time that students are with their teachers.
So the current start time is 7:45
At North Star.
at North Star.
But they're already there early.
But
they're
So now
already
we're getting
there.
credit
Okay.
for
Exactly.
them sitting in the classroom.
Yes.
But some of them probably aren't. I mean,
They get the students out of the cars, and the cars start lining up early as well, they are doing all of those things. Now, they will publish the start time as this start time, so that parents
Yeah.
know you can drop them off earlier, but they're doing it anyway. So this is the calendar, this is the same calendar that you have for K-12, we just put a new name on the top, and we added the green boxes as the teacher work days for early childhood. Is that right, green? Yes. It's too far away from me to see, but yeah, those are the days that we're proposing that the teachers have for their home visits.
So,
So they're not all Mondays.
I don't know how to ask, let me see. So when our K-12 teachers have a teacher workday, our
They will also have that work
they would
day.
have had them as well, so these are additional teacher work days, okay.
Correct.
That's what I'm trying to figure out, is that we're not,
But they have slightly different requirements, so.
no, I just wanna make
yeah.
sure that, you know, some are in and some are out. It's really that everybody's out on K-12 days,
Yes.
and then the, you know, the preschool programs will have their additional work days on top of that.
Correct.
Okay.
Go ahead, go ahead.
All right, so I have a question about the calendar. Some of these months are 1 day and some are 2 days. How was that distinction made?
The 2 days are around the 12-week marking period for pre-K.
Okay, and some are Friday and Monday, and it looks like some are just 2 on Monday. Is there a reason?
Yes, so in November, you have a Friday, Monday on November 3rd and November 6th. That's the end of the first pre-K 12-week marking period. So they have the Friday to prepare the reports, get everything ready, and start parent-teacher conferences, which then they'll do again on Monday. Same thing in February, that's the end of the second 12 weeks. And then we built in more time in March and April on days that made sense because we have over 300 four-year-olds who need kindergarten transition meetings. And so our teachers, if we schedule days for those transition meetings, we're not disrupting the instruction on random days for lots of people.
Okay, so did you say there were 3 marking periods in the year? All right, so, and I see November is the Friday and Monday, and that would be one. And then February is another one. When is the third one? Because there's no.
March.
But
The end
that-
of the
that's not-
school
it
year.
Can't, it can't be.
May.
End of the year.
It's the end of the school year, like it is for
When we have
the
regular
fourth
teacher
quarter
workdays.
for,
All right, so there's no extra days off on the,
No, not at the
on
very
the
end.
third one. All right, and then when you go back to your slide, you might wanna just look at that. It said the 3rd and the 4th, and it's, the calendar shows the 3rd and the 6th of November.
oh, okay, thank you. It should be the 3rd and the 6th on the slide. Here it is.
When does, is this the calendar for all K through 12, or are we still?
This is just
preschool.
early childhood.
Just for preschool?
Preschool.
They just kind of put it on top of the school calendar for you guys.
I'll try to coordinate.
Is that like?
So the green won't be you, but the other colors are you.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
So seniors don't get a week off this
Yeah,
year?
it just says little tykes get extra days.
So pay attention to your graduation.
You expect the educators to appreciate this, right? Because everyone's gonna be happy.
Oh, God, no.
Well, everyone is never happy.
I mean, yeah, actually, when I said that, I was like, something to say, I didn't mean it like that. I meant probably mostly welcome.
I can say that there,
Because it doesn't show that on the
one thing that is
calendar.
welcome is this idea of getting all 3 programs to have parity in the way their work happens and on the schedule it happens. When they initiated this conversation with the staff, it really was, what do we need in order to make this work? And so some of the, especially where the dates are on the calendar came from the staff, and which positions, if we get, depending on how much funding we get,
Yeah.
are put in priority order based on staff input.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how is the grant funding adjusted?
Are we asking questions
Yeah,
now?
yeah, so let's go ahead and we'll go around. Maya,
I
you're
did.
good? Okay, Dr. Chase?
Yeah, so you commented that we currently have no VPI, or we're funding VPI ourselves? I don't
The
quite-
early childhood special ed portion of our early childhood programs is
Right.
currently funded locally, not through VPI.
Okay,
We have VPI spots
right,
that are for students without special needs,
okay,
and VPI funds those spots.
right,
But right now, early childhood special ed is not funded through VPI, but having a disability is an automatic qualifier for VPI funding as of this past year. So that makes us eligible to apply for that funding to pay for extra programs for students.
and so, are we sure we'll get that funding?
We turn away seats every year. We are confident that we will get the funding.
Okay, and then, so are we expanding the program for non-early childhood special ed, or are we just, are we just looking for funding for early childhood special ed VPI?
There is no expansion of funding for regular
And no change of
preschool.
costs.
And, yeah.
Yeah, because the workforce is assigned on these days no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how we are assigning their time. Yeah.
I think,
Dr. Warner?
I think that, so if I understand this correctly, it doesn't, we will be eligible for funding for VPI for the special ed ECSE kids because we're making this adjustment to the calendar, and it will have no impact on Head Start and VPI.
Correct.
Okay, that was what I understood.
Well, the
Just
impact will be that those students,
Well-
some students have been going, like the Head Start students go 5 days a week.
Right,
All
right.
year long.
Yes.
Now they're gonna have these days off,
Okay.
and their teachers are gonna have
The
time to
teachers
do
are
the
gonna
home
have time to
visits.
actually do their home visits and their parent-teacher meetings,
Mhm.
which I think is a good idea.
Mhm.
Okay, that's it, okay.
Catherine?
No questions, thank you.
I have one question. So if this is the K through 12 calendar as well, is the last day of school for all grades or K through 11? This is more for Dr. Taylor.
Yeah, no, the last day of school is the last day of school for the regular ed program as well. So your last day is May 23rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Healy?
But we may graduate earlier than that. Sometimes
Yeah.
we graduate before the last day of school.
Yeah.
Since you may have an interest in that, since you'll be.
There is that on the table. Yeah.
I can't think about next year's graduation
Um,
yet.
Has this been vetted by the Head Start Policy Council?
They have been talking about it for a couple of months now, and it is an official agenda item at this coming meeting in the month. of
Okay,
June.
that would be helpful for us to, get their
The
feedback.
next policy council is, I think it's the 24th.
And do we have seats available in Head Start? Because I thought we always had I know this is not Head Start you're talking about, but just generally, I thought we had a waiting list for Head Start. We still do. So
We
this
did
is just the
this year.
3 and the 4. Now, do we have 4-year-old Head Start or just 5-year-olds
We have 3 and 4-year-old Head Start.
Head Starts?
Yeah.
5-year-olds at kindergarten.
Yep.
Oh, that's
So-
right.
Yes.
So we have a waiting list on Head Start, but we haven't almost
But we
an
have empty
unlimited
seats for
seating
BPI.
for the preschool. Or how did, is
So
that
really,
required
we
by
are not
law.
expanding necessarily the number of students we're serving. We are just supplementing our local funding with this DPI funding for the students who are currently in our seats.
And do we have enough spots for the students that have the families that have requested it?
And the children that we found.
We're running out of space.
We are running out of space. Last I heard that North Star is already looking full for next year.
Right, and
Yep.
they usually fill, I mean, there are usually more kids identified mid-year.
Yeah.
So if you have no spaces, then where do you put those kids? And we're required by law to meet the needs of kids who,
So what it's gonna look like is, over time, until we meet the needs of our growing early childhood community, that the geographic area for Rising Star will continue to grow, or we need to look at additional space options in terms of programmatic expansion. But you have something in your CIP that it would address a lot of those concerns, so it's not like you're not paying attention to it or you're not focused on it, because it's very clearly a project that you're trying to look at.
So we'd actually been talking about expanding North Star when we bought it.
Right.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
that was the plan,
Oh,
to
yeah.
immediately
Mhm.
do a 10 classroom
And
addition.
that may be worth adding to the conversation of CIP when you're ready to discuss it, so.
Well, I would think that this would be very attractive to the staff, particularly the Head Start staff,
Yes.
that haven't had that,
They're,
those
they're
extra
often
days.
juggling,
Yes.
trying to get these visits
yeah.
and these, especially the transition screening and all these other things done, because they don't have enough, like, substitutes to fill in, and they have to also accommodate parent schedules.
So is this gonna come to us for approval, or how does that work?
Ac-
Head
Actually,
Start Policy
you-
Council, I think, will
you-
approve it, and then we'll just,
Yeah,
we'll
and then
let you
you're,
know.
It
then you're
comes
just
on.
good to go, because you're not actually changing anything in terms of a financial, but it is a communication burden on us. We will need to promulgate it to the
Parents.
populations
Yeah, that would be-
of the
Oh, to the
program.
My biggest
Teachers.
communication concern would be getting parents advance notice,
Yeah.
so they can make other childcare
Childcare.
arrangements.
That's
Because
right.
a lot of the benefit of the Head Start has to do with the 5 days a week, almost,
That's
full
right.
days. And that if parents have to make childcare arrangements, the more notice they have, the better it's going to be.
And I feel
So
like
it's
this
on
is
us.
helpful to some of the, maybe the VPI parents, but to go 5 days versus trying to find childcare for the one day. So, Ms. Sigmund?
I'm a big proponent of 5-day preschool it's hard to find, and so I support it. But I think I'm struggling most with, setting aside the grant funding, the net fiscal impact to just the operating costs. If we're adding 15 minutes of instructional time, if we're adding another day of transportation, I just hear hourly employees, if we're adding time, we're adding money, right? So, and I get that we might get money to cover some of that we don't come out of our budget. But I would be interested in knowing what like the net fiscal impact is for,
So 0, if anything, you may realize a revenue, not an expenditure, because any change in the 15 minutes is within the contract day.
okay.
So it's already within, and I've had the same questions that you're having, it makes too much
But
logical sense.
if they're not contract workers, are they all in, they're all contracts?
Yeah.
Okay.
So even our paraprofessionals or even office staff, it's within their assigned time window to be there. So there's no fundamental change to their day. Their
Okay.
day is gonna start before this time period starts, and it's gonna end after this time period ends. So the change is within that window already.
And it's not gonna impact any transportation? I know this is kind of more on their own bell schedule anyway, or bus schedule anyway, but, you know, getting the drivers.
Yeah, they have
Their
their
own
buses.
Yeah.
too.
The
Yeah.
federal government pays
And that's
for
actually the
buses.
huge,
Okay.
huge benefit to them having their own buses, is that if a tweak, and we're not projecting that there is one, but if there is a tweak that's necessary, it would be within their self-contained system.
Sure, I'm all about it, but I wouldn't be on FAB if I wasn't asking about the pennies, so.
I feel like this is, really helpful. I did not know that they were on a different reporting schedule than our, at the quarters versus the trimesters. That's gonna be a lot. And I just would wonder, what are the ways though that we are going to be communicating these changes to parents? Because for some of them, it'll be their first time in our system, and getting the information that they received was the old information. So how are we going to make sure, in what ways?
I know that we will be amending every IEP for every student in the early childhood program, so that is a task for July.
Wow.
So the school is paying teachers to come back and do that, so those will be one-on-one conversations with every family in
Okay.
ECSE. And so then the other students are the 4-year-olds who come to school 5 days a week already, whose families need to make sure that they have a plan for those days that will be off, and those will be widely communicated by the school.
But this is also a welcome change this is something that parents are asking for too, so,
Well,
And
not
teachers.
necessarily the Head Start parents who are now losing some number of Mondays.
yes.
And Fridays.
Yeah,
But
so
some
I
of the
agree, it's a
trade-off,
welcome change for
yeah,
some,
yeah.
it's not gonna be so welcome for some too.
But we have also our traditional channels, through electronic and also paper means of getting calendars out like we normally would.
And bilingual.
Yeah,
Yeah,
multiple languages.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for this. Does anyone else have any other questions they wanted to ask? Good, okay. Let's scoot on to proposed evaluation and development model for licensed employees for the 23-24 school year.
Great.
Hi, Patrick.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair, especially members of the board. Excited to be here to talk with you about this tonight. Teacher evaluation development is actually one of the first topics I worked on when I first cut my teeth in the sector a long time ago. And it's exciting to have a chance to talk about it again, because used properly, it can be a really valuable tool as part of the actual goal that we have, which is having successful teachers for all of our students and having teachers see pathways for growth in their role. We made a few small tweaks last summer that the board adopted, and we were excited to be able to bring this tonight with a more thorough look, which was timed intentionally to come on the heels of the strategic plan. When we had first started talking about this over a year ago, Dr. Taylor and I agreed, let's see where the strategic plan lands, let's make sure that the review we're doing of licensed evaluation is in line with our goals of the strategic plan. And sure enough, of course, performance management and staff support are very heavily featured in the strategic plan. This process of review started back in December with collaboration with school leadership, academic programs, as well as the professional learning team in my office. And I'll get to that in just a second. But the main thing I want to emphasize is that what we're putting for you tonight, hopefully for adoption at the July meeting, is actually a relatively narrow set of changes to the structure of the evaluation model for licensed staff. But we think with these very targeted changes, we can actually get some very strong returns as to what the value of the model will be for administrators and for teachers, increasing their connection with one another, the opportunity to be aligned both with one another's expectations and with each school's school improvement plan, and also to provide a little bit of nuance for teachers that are in different roles, especially the non-classroom teachers and licensed staff who are not teachers, but where the board is still required to have an evaluation model adopted for them. So, there we go. As I said, this process started back in December, and the piece of this that I'm particularly encouraged by is that we started out with a question of like, what are the problems that we're trying to address, and what are the things that we want to consider? We did this again in collaboration with school leadership, academic programs, and professional learning, but most importantly, we did it in collaboration with school-based staff. We offered an invitation to all school-based staff to raise their hands and offer their time to be part of working groups to answer a couple of key questions around what we thought. For example, what's the purpose of classroom observation? What do we need to have be different for librarians and for counselors, for example? How do we think about student progress in subjects that don't have state assessments? And let's make sure that when we're making those decisions, it's informed by the people who are most affected by it. So I get to the end of my session, I'm going to share a list of the folks that participated in the working group. That's going to be posted to the agenda item, and we want to make sure we're very forward and being grateful for them giving their time outside of their jobs for this. We took the recommendations from that working group and started to work to what would be ideal, but then also what is reasonable to implement, because whether you're talking about administrators or you're talking about staff, people have competing priorities. And what we looked for was what is going to be the highest yield improvement to licensed evaluation that is going to be manageable within a world of competing priorities. And what we looked at was really an emphasis on two factors. Alignment and linking to professional learning. And those weren't chosen arbitrarily. One, it was some of the feedback that came out of the working groups, but the other, and it's always great when your staff engagement aligns with what's research in the field, and in this case that pans out. Some of the best studies that have come out around evaluation and professional growth, full disclosure, one of them is a former organization of mine, TNTP, have talked about these two factors as being very important. That in a comprehensive multi-district study of professional growth, one factor linked evaluation and actual growth, and it was alignment between the teacher's own perceptions of their effectiveness and then what they received in their formal evaluations from their school leader. So finding that alignment, incredibly important for people to actually grow. And the other is, well, if they're going to grow, then you need to make sure that you're tying professional learning to what they see. If classroom planning and lesson planning is growth area, let's link professional learning to that. In some ways, these seem pretty intuitive. It's great to have the research back it up, but these were, again, areas that the working groups highlighted as areas for focus. So, with that in mind, it sounds like a big windup, but actually a relatively narrow list of proposed changes. And I'm not going to walk through these bullet by bullet, but instead to give the theme. One is to increase more time between administrators and teachers in terms of observations. So right now, a first-year teacher will get 3 full-length observations, and then it scales down from there to a point where a teacher who's on continuing contract in their formal evaluation year would only receive 1 observation. A continuing teacher contract, a teacher on continuing contract who is in an informal year, no required observations at all. Now, there's no requirement from that from the state, but if we're thinking about a continuum and continuous engagement, something that was highlighted as important is everyone should be getting observations, but how do we balance that with the administrative burden? So we talked about what's the point of observations. Let's distinguish, does every observation need to be a full-length observation? Or can we distinguish between a full-length observation? What's a targeted observation where you're going in looking for one thing, looking at a snapshot of a classroom encounter? And if we balance those, do we make this something that is manageable for administrators, still meaningful for teachers, and increases more frequent connection between administrators and teachers? The second was in goal setting. Right now, goal setting, SMART goals for licensed staff focuses very much on student learning and student data. Still will, that's the point of it. But we propose adding a step ahead of that, which is a self-reflection for the teacher. One of the things we wanted to emphasize was how, and again, looking at the research, how do you improve alignment? Well, it's by creating pause points for reflection for both parties. This is something that is recommended at the state level, so the proposal actually is to use the exact self-evaluation model that the state has proposed, and to fold that into the goal setting process. The other expectation, this is something that flows straight out of the Summer Leadership Academy, is to have all of this scale up. In the same way we talked about the strategic plan for the division, that we want school improvement plans to tie back to the strategic plan. We want goals set by staff to tie back to the school improvement plan. Everything should build on itself to help us achieve that strategic plan. Mid-year evaluations. Right now, by state law, only first-year teachers, and that's their first year working for us, whether it's their first year teaching or their 28th year teaching, are required to have an informal mid-year evaluation, just a touch point of, hey, how are things going, or are you on track? We think that's good practice for any probationary staff members, to ensure that there's that alignment. Optional for anyone else, but a good step for those that are still on annual contracts. And the last piece is just to improve our differentiation for folks that are not in traditional classroom roles, whether you're talking about teacher specialists or other licensed staff. This is one of the fun quirks of Virginia law, that depending on where you look in the Code of Virginia or the Virginia Administrative Code, teacher means different things. And for the particular part of the code where the requirement for evaluation shows up, teacher means anyone who has a license issued by the Virginia Board of Education, including school social workers, school psychologists, school counselors, librarians, for whom the standards that are established aren't necessarily quite on the mark for their actual duties. So we were very grateful to the participation of folks who are in those disciplines in our working group to help identify resources that will be more targeted and more relevant for those professionals. Please do not let the stock photos that the internet provided me make it seem, the point I'm about to make seem light. There were a lot of things that we could have included. The working groups came up with a lot of really interesting suggestions, and in a perfect world with infinite time, a lot of them would have been amazing. But we're not in a perfect world with infinite time. We have a lot of priorities to cover. And so I want to acknowledge that there were some trade-offs that we faced. Would it have been great to have a lot of observations? Yeah, but we only have so much time. Would it have been great to set aside lots of working time between administrators and teachers to co-develop, like, in our school, this is what this look like? Yeah, that'd be amazing. Should we have additional goal requirements for teachers? Maybe, but again, we wanted the focus of these proposed changes to focus on those two main goals I mentioned, alignment, professional learning, and we thought we needed to be very targeted with that. And so that's how we came to the proposals that we did around regular observations for everyone, more frequent step backs for novices, and then that emphasis on reflection and collaboration. Last point I'll make is that all of these shifts really go in with the emphasis that evaluation is not an end. The point is not the summative rating. Evaluation is a tool for what we actually care about. And I wanted to make sure we emphasize that whatever the tool is that we adopt, it's ultimately meant to get at the piece on the right. What we care about is student learning. How we get there is by having environments that staff want to work in, where staff feel supported, and this is one pathway for us to get there. So I do have some fields. I mentioned the list of the people who are part of those working groups that I want to make sure to thank, as well as a table. I know I sometimes like charts that indicates what those proposed requirements would be, broken out by each group: classroom teachers, non-classroom teachers, and then other licensed professionals.
Okay, let's go around and again, Ms. Guy.
Who's giving right now?
Sure. Dr. Chase?
Yeah, so, I get sort of a general sense, but can you, so what are we talking about? Are we talking about every single teacher will have some kind of evaluation every single year? Or are we talking about there being years when teachers continue to not have evaluations?
So, right now by state law, every teacher receives some kind of evaluation every single year. Even teachers on continuing contracts get a formal observation once every 3 years, and then they are evaluated informally the other years. That's still true. I think the one major change in here is just saying that there should be actual time in the classroom up to someone, whether they're in a formal evaluation year or not.
So we're saying that currently we have teachers who are on continuing contracts who have a formal evaluation that doesn't actually involve anybody coming into their classroom?
Not a formal evaluation, I'm sorry, I'll try to be clear about this. There are people who have informal evaluations, we would call them off-cycle, where they are required to get an evaluation here, but that evaluation is informal, and there is not presently any requirement for a teaching observation as part of that informal.
So what's an informal evaluation? What is that?
So, right now it would be based on the student goals that are established by teachers, and then
So like you're just looking at the data and the
Yeah.
principal and the teacher look at their data and say, hey, your students aren't doing as well as we'd like, or wow, your students knocked it out of the park.
So teachers are collecting a number of artifacts on a number of different domains, so they're evaluated in a number of different criteria. So they may be collecting parent contact logs, they may be collecting lesson plans and this, individual unit lessons that they wanna share and show to an administrator to demonstrate some type of proficiency. Effectively, they're working off of their goals, they set some professional goals that are measurable and time-bound, and they're trying to show evidence towards meeting that goal. It's not just test scores or achievement, but it may be a number of different things. It may be that something related to their professional growth, like they gave a presentation at a professional event or to a faculty meeting, they may have a copy of that slide deck or something like that, so.
And so what we're doing now is gonna be different from that?
That's right, right now we are adding an expectation that even in those off-cycle years,
Right.
So
that
go
they're,
see them in the classroom.
yeah, spend real time in the classroom.
Okay.
Like I said, a targeted adjustment.
So I think this makes sense because I've been told by multiple teachers at different schools, and they've been teaching like 5-6 years, but they've never had they've never had anyone in their class. I understand what you're saying, but I also understand the words that are coming out of their mouth. And so this would eliminate that, right?
Should.
And
I
I
mean-
wasn't, I still have it.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you talked about stakeholders, were parents or students involved in this at all?
They were not, so. Now, I will say student surveys are presently and would still be a required element of the evaluation, and that all teachers, including those in off-cycle years, are expected to administer student surveys for feedback.
For first graders?
There are different
Yeah,
survey
it's
models.
like
that
a
go
smiley face.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
so there are different ways,
Yeah.
even for non-readers
Mhm.
to
Was
indicate.
curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Dr. Warner?
So, Dr. Chase asked one of my questions. Who decides what type and duration of evaluation's done? So if you have a first-year teacher, clearly there's already parameters set up, but what if you've got a teacher that's been there maybe 3 to 4 years, and they're teaching in a different area? Who decides and how is that done?
Sure. So the basic rundown is the teachers that are on probationary contracts are on annual contracts. So their first year with us, typically through their third year, that's the only difference would be if someone was on continuing contract elsewhere. But for most purposes, teachers in their first 3 years are gonna be on annual contracts, and they're always going to have a formal evaluation. Teachers on continuing contract, as I mentioned, it's gonna be a formal evaluation once every 3 years. We do it at alphabetical cycle. So if someone changes subjects, changes assignments, if they're already on continuing contract, it may not be their formal evaluation year, and so then it's gonna be a collaboration between the principal and the teacher if there's gonna be more observation in that setting. I will say that if a teacher is put onto a performance improvement plan, the expectation is regardless of where they are in the cycle, they're getting a formal evaluation structure the next year that should be rigorous.
Okay.
Jeff?
So the proposal looks great, I just have one quick question, and it was kind of similar to Dr. Chase's, I believe. So I'm just curious, what is this proposal based off of? I wasn't sure, was it like a survey, is it from past studies, or is this like a model adapted from another county? I was just curious where this came from.
All of the above.
Okay,
So
okay.
this was, the State Board of Education does
Okay.
issue guidelines for teacher evaluation, including standards. We are required to use the standards for performance that are published by the state. The language of the standards is also the definition of effective practice. Every school division in Virginia has to use that definition. There are also some requirements, for example, classroom observations are required to be a part of evaluations. From there, it's a lot of recommendations for the state to consider this, maybe do that, here are some ideas around X. And then school divisions have a lot of flexibility, so as we looked at this, there were a number of models we looked at. One was just national research, one was models that are currently in use in other divisions where they've done, for example, modified standards for the non-classroom teachers or other licensed professionals, and then the working groups that I mentioned of current staff and input from them.
Okay, cool, thank you.
I have no questions, but thank you for doing this, and I do hope that this makes teaching in this county better, and hopefully that'll impact the students better too.
Thank you. Missy?
Okay, so who does the evaluations?
Building administrators, with one asterisk, which is other licensed professionals, so you're thinking about psychologists in particular, it may be that based on their profession's standards, they need to be evaluated by someone within their profession, and so there it may be a blended responsibility between the building principal
Yeah,
and
I like the process, and I like the idea of having more evaluations, because I think it's better for teachers to be getting that formal feedback. But I'm wondering, in terms of the extra work on the administrators, how is that factored in? Because I'm looking at your evaluators, there's 2 assistant principals for elementary, but there's no administrators from middle and high school, you know,
Right.
on here at all.
Oh, sorry, principals and assistant principals should be in play for all.
Right,
but-
well, but they're the only ones I see, I don't see administrators, or maybe I'm missing it, for middle and high school on here.
Oh, sorry, yes. I guess I should clarify one thing, and this is something that was in place this year, but we really want to emphasize it for next year. In part because we're not every single element is, you get a score for under this proposal. The proposal is that the evaluation rating is holistic. When you're not scoring each individual element, it opens you up as to who can participate in the process of evidence collection and the collaboration between administrators and teachers on this. So the upshot of that is more people can conduct classroom observations, not just the administrators. So an express encouragement here is that this is an opportunity for teacher leaders to be able to go in and conduct some peer observations as well. A lot of times, both in schools I've worked with here as well as in other places, those are valued by teachers who may appreciate the opportunity to have their classroom observed by someone from their content area as well.
Okay, so it won't all, the burden won't all be
It
on the
will not
administrator.
all fall on the
That probably
administrators.
should be part of what the explanation here.
Sure.
Because if you just look at it on its face, it looks like we're putting a lot more work on the administrators, and they're not really fully represented in the review group. And have we gotten feedback from the middle and high school administrators on this? Because they're at least not, they're not listed here.
They're not listed, and so those were specifically the working groups. Of course, Dr. Greider and Dr. Nichols were part of the working groups. No one's arm was twisted to participate in these. It was a call to who was willing to contribute their time during, an admittedly a narrow window of time. And so certainly we can solicit some more input from our secondary
Is this to
administrators.
start for next year?
This would be for next year,
For
yes.
next year. I mean, I would like to at least get some feedback from the middle and the high school administrators, particularly since the 2 individuals you mentioned, will be in those positions next year. And I just, don't wanna have, nobody talked with us, or just, and I have no expectation it'll be any different from the rest of the review.
Sure.
It just, you know, to go through that.
It's not wholly irregular.
And then I did have one question about the mid-year evaluations, which are required for first-year staff only
Present,
now,
yes.
and they'll be required for all probationary staff. So probationary for new people is 3 years?
Right,
New
for
teachers?
people who are new, it
Okay.
is their first 3
Yeah.
years.
I like that because I think it's gonna help. You know, it's really gonna help them and hopefully help their professional development as well. But if someone comes to us from another school district and they're, you know, already a veteran teacher, are they probationary for us?
So for
Or-
1 year by state law, yes, and
Okay.
this was something I confirmed with VDOE, because this was very much my question of, you know, essentially, if someone's coming in with us with 20 years of experience, do we have to treat them as a first-year teacher? Because that's what the plain reading of the statute is. They said, yeah, you do, that is the plain reading of the statute.
So there's no change in.
There's no change in that, and that's a state law.
With,
yeah.
but I mean, for this proposal, the probationary is only the first year, so there's no change in the evaluation for,
Correct.
and I'll call just an experienced teacher
Correct.
versus a new
Correct.
one.
Yeah.
And then it says optional for continuing contract staff. What would the contract staff, would that be like the psychologist or the?
Continuing contract teachers, people who,
Non-probationary.
right, non-probationary.
Oh,
teachers.
non-probationary, okay. All right, well, I see this as a win, assuming that it's not gonna be an untenable burden on our administrators to have to come up with this, but I think it's great that non-administrators will be able to do this, and if that could be somehow built into the
Mhm.
written document,
Sure.
it might be helpful.
Although for them, it may be an increased burden.
Yeah, for
That's what I'm
whoever has to do it, it's gonna be more. But hopefully we'll be able to mitigate that. I mean, are we just gonna build this in? Is this gonna be one of those unfunded mandates?
Well, you've got a couple of things
Supporting
that
more
are,
people.
that are playing to your advantage where you have made some changes to your administrative structure, particularly at high school, where you are now fulfilling the standards of quality of high school, which is an add of 1 FTE assistant principal to every high school, so that adds a tremendous amount of capacity, which can absolutely address some of this. By adding some of the middle school testing and remediation coordinator positions at the middle school level, you are also adding administrative capacity at that space, and by rebalancing some of the workload at elementary school, you're also adding administrative capacity at that space. So it's not unfounded that there is some additional capacity that's being generated to help support this a little bit, so that it isn't an unfunded mandate.
Yeah, I just don't want people to think that we're dumping more responsibility without, any potential support for it. So, thank you. I just see this as a win-win for the administrators as well as
Hopefully
the
the
staff.
students.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's.
Ultimately.
Well, if they align the two, then hopefully it's better, more highly effective teachers, which will give us better success with the students.
Ms. Sigmund?
I don't have any questions, but I do also really, really like this. I get that a lot of what we do is having to check boxes that are sent to us from VDOE or, wherever. And I think that one of the things that this does is flip it from a chore to like an essential teaching and learning tool. And when teachers know that I gotta get evaluated, and the principal's like, I gotta do the evaluation, check the box, you're done till next year, but we're not really using that to, build a relationship with our teachers, create a better school environment, make our teachers feel valued and that we actually care, like we're where they're going and what they're doing. I think that those are all kind of positive outcomes from this. And I feel like our administrators might not mind putting a little more effort in because it's strategic, and they're going to see a lot more return on that effort, I think, than the current setup, because it is tied to the school improvement plan, because it is specific to the teacher, because it is specific to the position. It might not feel like such a chore anymore. And I really, really like that.
And it's interesting, you mentioned the term checkbox, and one of the things I know that I've talked with members of school leadership about is how do we make sure that the things we put out there aren't checkboxy?
Yeah.
if that's an adjective that I can use. Let's make sure that classroom observations are not simply a matter of this, but more the, what am I coming in to observe and how can that lead more directly to actionable information.
And I love that the teacher will have that first pass at providing their input to the process, and they're not just like, this is what I see,
Right.
you know, they're providing that,
Yeah,
this
getting
is
to
what
that
I'm
point of alignment.
experienced, and then seeing where they're, cause I don't know what the process is. And I feel like for teachers, if they're responding to an observation, they're already kind of put on edge versus they're providing their input and then we're responding to that almost and then adding both ways. I think we're just really changing the dynamic, and I think that's the most important part of all of this. I'm okay doing a little more than the state asks us to when we're gonna get a good output from it, and I think we will. I like this a lot.
Was this something that was rolled out or explained at the, summer leadership already, or?
No, and intentionally.
Okay.
Not one, because we haven't come with this group.
Right.
It's, I'll see you down. The other is that we didn't want to put the cart before the horse. The decision was, for SLA, to focus on, building day after day to get to the point of really starting to dive into the school development plan.
Okay.
And for that to be the initial focus,
Right.
for administrators and for their teacher leaders. And then this would start to slide in after that.
So when will, cause I imagine there's a rollout piece that you need to do for your administrative team, but there's also a rollout piece that needs to be done for the teaching, the teachers of all different levels.
Yep.
So how is that gonna go?
Starting with professional learning days for administrators in late July.
July.
And then building in materials for teachers during the teacher work week, and
Okay.
then materials that will continue to be available through our professional learning platform.
Okay. So I just don't want this to feel like it's an overwhelm, but it does seem like, I mean, it's a different way of approaching it, but I know that, you know, even from my teaching days, that it's kind of, it's helpful, like, if I can get a peer to give me feedback, as well as my administrative team to give me feedback. I also see this as a way of, you know, if it's done well, it's giving teacher, you know, we're trying to build we're trying to build good teachers, we're trying to build good administrators, and if an administrator does this well, you know, I feel like it's all still part of that building process for all of our students in all of our schools. So I appreciate this. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? No? Okay, thank you. Moving on to 3.03, changes to the bell schedule for the 23-24 school year.
Slide up to. Good evening, so, really just a little bit of a tweak to our bell schedule next year. So when we implemented last year's bell schedule and coming off, the year that we had the, prior year and trying to make, drastic improvements and build up our bus driver pool, we had a 60-minute bell gap. That pushed our start and end time for our last year, which was middle school, to 9:30 to 4 o'clock, which was on the later end. And so our goal was, all along, was to evaluate that and see if we could make some improvements or some tweaks to that this year. So after we completed this year and took another look at our on-time rates, where we're at with our number of bus drivers, decided that we can cut 5 minutes from our bell gaps between high school and elementary, and also cut 5 in the bell gap between elementary and middle, which means it's a 5-minute swing for elementary, but it's a 10-minute swing for our middle school. So elementary, so no change to high school or Rock Hill, but our elementary would start at 8:25 and end at 2:55. And as I mentioned, middle school has a 10-minute swing, so they would actually start at 9:20 and end at 3:50. Believe we can do this with minimal impact to our on-time arrivals. This does help with our teacher recruitment and retention and our middle school activities that are after school. So one of the things that we hear from principals and our staff at our middle school level is that late time, and you look at a Shirley Hine that's coming from the north and deals with a lot of that traffic. The earlier we can get them out, the better. So really can have a positive impact. Even those 10 minutes is a big mental swing from going from 4 o'clock to 3:50. So recruitment and retention is key there. Also believe it can help decrease some of our overtime and additional wages for transportation. So many of our routes don't even need 30 minutes between their tiers. And so what that ends up doing is we have buses that they might finish their high school run and they're waiting at the high school before they even start their elementary school run for 15, 20 minutes. Then they wait at their elementary school before they even start their middle school run because you can only get a kid to school so early. So what that means is overall, across all of our drivers, a large chunk of them will actually be able to shorten their day by 10 minutes overall since we're finishing the day 10 minutes earlier at the middle school level. So right now we're seeing a lot of our drivers, and this has historically been the case, is we contract them, it could be 6 hours, it could be 6.5 hours, it could be 5.5, is what their contracted day is, and they go over that, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. If they do double runs, it could be extra if they're covering for a driver and absenteeism. So what that means is 10 minutes shortened there means that they're on the road for 10 minutes less, and so don't have as much additional overtime. We're still paying them their full contract hours. Do believe we can actually save some funds there. I would not work that into, and we did present this to the FABC and had a great conversation on it, and I explained to them, this isn't something that I would target in our FY24 budget to make a reduction in. I wanna see it play out in FY24 and try to really true up our hourly wages and overtime for transportation after we see how FY24 plays out. I believe this could be as much of a 175 to 225,000 range for overall savings across the entire school year. But as I said, I wanna see that play out. And just a reminder, some of our biggest factors for our on-time arrival will always be traffic in this area and whether we have adequate substitute drivers, and so hourly drivers, substitute drivers, to cover our absenteeism, which runs 10% per day of our bus drivers.
Okay. Ms. Guy?
I'm gonna defer, let
Sure.
Ms. Chase go.
Okay.
Dr. Chase.
Yeah,
Chase?
so, this looks fine. I was still waiting somewhere in here, I thought we were gonna be given the actual numbers of what transportation costs this year with this bell schedule versus the previous year's bell schedule. So do we have that yet, or are we getting that later this summer?
No, because we finalized all of our payroll, so we're doing a presentation, a transportation update at our August work session, so I was gonna provide that information.
Okay, and then we can look to see if this reduces that further. Presumably it increased the cost when we changed, but this reduction may cause it
To try to offset that a little bit.
Yes, yeah, yeah. All right, thank you.
How many double runs do we still have?
So end of the year, about 5 or 6, but some of those are planned double runs that help with efficiency. So we have some of our schools that literally they take a full busload of kids a mile away. And so very easy, do a quick drop, one stop, you drop them and you return back to the school and you pick up the next one. So they're back at that school in 15 minutes.
Or they go to the next school, like there's one from
Well, yeah,
Park
'cause
Ridge,
I
they
just
drop in
remember
every
there's
mill, and then
one
they
at
go to Hampton Oaks.
Whitewater that sometimes meant late dismissals
Mhm.
and teachers staying, and I'm wondering if that was still there.
We did end the year with that.
Okay, but is it gonna be back next year?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. Catherine?
No questions, thank you.
I just wanted to know the on-time arrival percentages, like for overall, if you have that.
So it's right about that 96, 97%, and that is, we targeted March because that was kind of approaching the end of the year, but it wasn't those last couple months. Obviously, the beginning of the year, it's closer to 90, 92 it wasn't 90, but 92, 93, but it depends on the tier. So we were as high, even in that first month of the year, we were still in the high 90s in some of our tiers. On any given day, depending on call-outs, on Fridays, it's gonna be a little bit higher of a late bus, a little bit lower on our on-time percentages. So it's gonna vary, but we took the entire month of March as like a good tier of, hey, we were pretty adequately staffed in March, we were getting close to fully contracted. But before the end of the year, where we don't have seniors and we start to have You actually can see an improvement in some on-time, bus driver attendance as we get kind of that last last couple weeks of the year. Because the bus drivers want to see their kids on those last few days of school and as they approach the end of the year. So it really took kind of March as a good, just a good record of a point to compare to. So those are the ones I put up there, but for the entire year, I didn't have that. But it's gonna be right around plus or minus those percentages.
Thank you.
Ms. Healy?
Well, last year when we approved it, I had heard from a number of parents at Rock Hill that I know the teachers were 100%, well, almost 100% wanting to stay on that first tier, but a number of the parents were, expressed concerns about having to, have the kids out so early and up early. And I thought we were going to do an evaluation of whether Rock Hill and Garrisonville had to be on different schedules. I mean, for decades, as you know, they were on the same schedule. So did we do that evaluation? And if so, when will that be shared with the board, or at least I have an interest, I don't know about anyone else.
So we did do an evaluation of pretty in-depth in looking at all of Rock Hill's routes and all of our tiers. We wanted to try to push Rock Hill back, even if it was 15, 20 minutes later than they are now, so maybe not putting them all the way on that elementary school tier. We can't put them on that elementary school tier as it stands now because we don't have the number of buses at that elementary school tier to do all 17 elementary schools at the same time. We don't have the capacity to do that, so it's better to split them and have an elementary school on that first tier. Rock Hill, because of the length of their routes, if we bump them later, we still can't get their buses back in time to help with that elementary school tier. So the number of 15 buses roughly that we have for Rock Hill, we would not be able to use them on that elementary school tier, which means we're still losing them at that elementary school tier.
Okay, well, that gives me some explanation, because my understanding from last year was not, there weren't adequate buses, it was because of the traffic going in to the two schools.
You have actually both issues.
That was a perk too, so, we couldn't do it because of the number of buses, and then when we selected a school to bump them up to that high school tier, Rock Hill made sense to split them up from Garrison.
Well, and I understand that, and the teachers were, very pleased generally, with that, but I wanted to get the results of that, and I feel that I owe that to the parents of the Rock Hill to have that report, and what's, why there's no change in that proposal. But to the extent that, it is a bus problem, I understand, it's an issue with the other one, but because we've done it for decades, I don't know that it's insurmountable. I would like to continue that study, with the Rock Hill, because it is a lot earlier, for those kids to have to be out at the bus stop
We can add that to the August update, and I think that makes sense, because we would create an artifact in the slide deck that the public could view. This is something that we're gonna have to address in the next couple years as we expand our elementary school count, because we will be reshuffling the deck in terms of where students are. For the most part, the students equal buses, so as we grow, we add more buses, not necessarily as we add campuses, but this will necessitate adding additional buses to the fleet, and adding an additional dozen buses to the fleet to add that capacity at the elementary level makes sense, to get them all in the same space. I think we did learn that, is it possible? Yes. Is there a slight advantage to separating the traffic? Yes. But is it absolutely necessary? No, it's not absolutely necessary, but in terms of our logistics and what we have available, you only have a certain number of buses at that tier, and you have to pick which one is going to be on a different schedule, and the Rock Hill faculty let us know.
Oh, yeah.
They sure did.
They were happy, but some of the parents were,
Sure.
Well, there was a lot of schools that
Yeah.
wanted their tier.
Oh,
It
sure.
wasn't a Rock Hill.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they won the lottery.
Did you
But if
have another-
we
sorry.
can also, when we do put that explanation out to the public, I would also like to reiterate our intention from last year to evaluate this, to see if there was a way that we could end the middle school day earlier, because I don't want the perception to be that we are just trying to change the calendar. That this is a commitment that we made to the middle schools
Sure.
and the families as well as the staff, that we would see if there is a way that we could have them end the day before 4 o'clock, because I think there was a lot of concern, with whoever ended up with that third bell schedule. So I just wanna make it clear that we're not just arbitrarily saying we're gonna change the bell schedule. We are following through on a commitment we made, last year when we changed this bell schedule, in both Rock Hill and the middle schools.
Ms. Hickman?
I got most of my questions on this answered at FAB, but the recent topic here, where are we getting all our buses? Do we have we haven't heard about that in a minute, so I figured this is a good time to ask
And we'll include that in our update in August, but I'd love to share a little bit now. We're still waiting on about 10 of our buses, but we've received roughly 55 to 60 just in this fiscal year that we've received, that were ordered sometime in the past, 18 to 24 months.
Does that
So,
include the gas and the diesel?
yes,
So we're
it's
waiting
mainly
for-
the diesel actually we're waiting for now,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Cause I know for a while the diesel weren't moving at all,
Yeah,
and the
we're
gas.
still waiting, those
buses-
are the ones we're waiting on, but hopefully soon.
Yeah, only 10 is way better than
Yes.
where we had been.
So we ended the year in a much better situation as far as a spare ratio for buses, so we were able to take them off and have a spare bus. But at some point, we have to start,
Actually retiring.
retiring some of these buses that are well past, that are becoming very expensive to maintain.
That's what I was gonna ask, so we've gotten about 50 this year, have we retired any that need to go away?
A few, because, if an engine goes and it's a $25,000 cost on a bus that has 200,000 miles on it,
Yeah.
that's due for, at that point, we're not. But for most of the year, we tried to keep every bus on the road that we could, because we needed to have that spare ratio, or just to have enough buses on the road at any time. There were days we had 0 spares, in the middle of the year when we were still waiting on buses. So, every time we got a bus, it was like, whew, a bus goes out of service and that spare is immediately on the road.
And then we sell those buses, or am I forgetting?
Yeah, they'll go to auction, it's not very much.
I know, but I told you, if we decked them out, we might get a little more.
Well, we also have to keep some of the rotation for spares, though.
Yeah.
backups.
Yeah. So, what kind of, or maybe you don't know this, but did we have any type of retention issues in the middle school because of the schedule this year? Do we see that?
It's early to tell.
Okay. I
but-
meant even like, well, okay, that we're
Yeah.
coming back for next year.
Yeah, I will say overall, our percentage is lower in terms of
Right.
attrition, which
Right.
is good, but we can add that to.
Yeah, just
And
curious
that's
where
looking
it
at the
falls
year
in,
reporting.
I had
even
a
all three.
Right, when I had spoken to at least one middle school principal who indicated that it specifically had an effect on them for math, because the math teachers can teach at the high school if they have the certification, and so they'll go teach at the high school because it has a better schedule for them than the middle school. And
Got
so, in my looking at where we have openings, it looked to me like middle school math is where we have more openings than high school math.
Got it.
And I did talk to principals who specifically said they recruited teachers from northern middle schools to southern ones because the people didn't want the commute. They didn't, if they had to put up with the late dismissal, they didn't wanna do the commute.
Okay.
So there was a loss of teachers.
So our goal is hopefully
For
to,
some people.
My principals were like, woohoo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this should
Shirley
help
High
with that.
principal
Yeah,
was
hopefully the 10
not
minutes
yoo-hoo.
helps.
And I think, when I talked to Carly Hanga,
Hanga.
she also said she had lost some teachers.
Well, interesting, if we had reversed the high school and middle, would you have the same issue?
But
Yeah.
in reverse,
Yeah.
So it's just,
Yep.
Yeah.
it's no happy ending.
Well, except that there aren't any high schools that far north, like, North Stafford.
So I had a question too about the 97% on time for the high school in Rock Hill. But I think you answered that, cause I was like, wait, why are we 97 in the first run? But you said, cause that's when you find out drivers have called out and, okay. So I was just double checking on that. And then I also had those same questions about how many buses did we receive, and you said we still have on order? Do we have any additional ordered buses?
Well, on July 1,
Yes.
with the FY '24 budget, we'll add 10 more to that.
10 more, okay. So 10 are in the order queue, and we'll add 10 more come July 1.
Yes, and Head Start is looking to try to attain a grant to get a
Right.
Head Start bus as well.
Which they've usually
So,
done.
so
They
we might
usually
have
do.
add another one to that if they can get approved.
So,
Right.
so not to terrify anyone, but you're bringing up a really poignant and interesting point here. So we have about 250 buses in our fleet, and we're replacing 10 a year. But there's the useful life of a school bus is 10 years at best, or 250 or 300,000 miles at best.
25 a year.
So we need 25 a year, and so as we, work towards that and try to level out our fleet and the
Yeah.
regular replacement cycle, the good news is we've done this bubble purchase, and there's some smoothing that needs to take place over the next couple of years, but,
10
but
years.
looking ahead towards the end of your 5-year budget,
Yeah.
it will be time to start amping up the bus replacement cycle again, so
Okay.
that it levels out a little bit.
Okay.
Well, and in the past, we have sometimes gotten to the end of the year and
Yes.
there's
Yeah.
money and then we do
Right.
a
Buy
school
some
bus.
buses, yeah.
But
Yes.
that was not this year.
No.
No,
What is that, what are we looking at for
No.
delivery timelines now for buses?
still about 12 months.
I was about to ask.
Oh, gosh.
So it hasn't changed. And
No.
12 months really means
I
18
feel
to
like
be
this
specific.
time change for the middle school, like Ms. Healy has mentioned, they asked for us to look at it. I'm glad that you took a full year to look at it and came up with a plan. I'm gonna ask again, similarly to what I've asked earlier, is what is the rollout? Because this is a time change
Yeah.
that
We-
I'd like to make sure parents are fully aware of, because this is not what they left school knowing.
So this doesn't require action from the board because you're not actually changing the number of days assigned or anything like
Right,
this. So
right.
it's an administrative change. We will begin actually tonight with a press release
Okay,
that Mr. Hunter Berry has drafted to go out tonight, and then we'll start doing social all the way throughout the summer, and then add into our beginning of year
principal
correspondence as well.
correspondence, okay.
So,
And I think once the kids get,
Yeah.
bus stop assignments, it's not,
yeah,
it's such a small change relatively, they'll just think,
yeah,
they moved me up a bus stop.
yeah.
And we
Yeah.
know not to assume it's the same bus time every year.
Yeah.
We all
Oh,
know
yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah.
They should be checking that website.
Will that
Sometimes the
reflect-
second year you don't know that and that's when you find
Will
out.
that press
Okay.
release reflect that this is part of our follow-through on the commitment we made last year?
Yes.
To me, that's really important, because I do not want the parents to think that we are
Just throwing something else
arbitrarily,
out.
No.
capriciously changing the bus schedule.
They asked us
That's
to
a
look
good
at it,
point.
we
I just
looked
wanna
at
make
it.
They
sure
waited
that
a
when
year,
this
the way
goes
we
out-
said
I
we
have
would.
another question though. So might we do this again at this time next year?
So,
Or no?
Unlikely.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're gonna
We can't
evaluate.
get any better?
Evaluate
Okay.
every year. I think
Alright.
Dr. Taylor made a good point that when we add 3 schools in August of 2026, that could be an opportunity for us to take another look at the bell times, and we could even get a little bit more strategic in the way we tier them, and maybe it's not 3 tiers, maybe it's, a couple elementary schools in the past where we had
I've
a few
seen
that
other
were.
school districts have like 5 and 6 tiers.
Yeah,
And sometimes it's elementary, middle, and a high on one tier, depending on location and
Yeah.
buses and.
Prince William has
Yes,
dozens.
Which
yeah.
is
Yeah.
Seems-
suboptimal for
It's
interscholastic
a little,
stuff and,
yeah,
yeah.
for sure,
Yeah.
CTS and things like that.
yeah,
so the answer is yes, we'll take a look
Okay.
at it, but I don't expect major changes.
Right.
Until we get to 2026.
okay, okay. And I'd also like to hear, even transportation committee as to some of their thoughts as well. So, all right, any other questions? All right, any announcements?
No, ma'am, you got a hefty amount of stuff to talk about,
All
in
right.
between your meetings.
We have no closed session this evening, and so go get your dinners and enjoy, and we'll meet at 7.
No.
Yes.
So I noticed the thing about dovetail,
7:00, and I'm calling this meeting to order. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Hall, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Chase,
Here.
Ms. Buckman,
Here.
Ms. Guy,
Here.
Ms. Halsted. She is going to try to connect with us virtually.
Okay, is
I'll
she,
check
on-
on
is she-
that.
but she's not on yet? You want to?
I don't think so. Ms. Healy,
Here.
Ms. Randall,
Here?
Ms. Sigmund,
Here.
Ms. Solomon, and Dr. Warner.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Madam Chair, I would like to move that we authorize Ms. Halsted to participate electronically if she is able to.
Second.
She's looking to log in, the link.
Yes, I'm going to check with the lady, the technician in the back and see
Okay,
if she's in.
can I get a second, please?
Second.
Okay, any questions? All right, cast your vote. Tally the vote. Motion passes 6-0. Okay, and if she's able to join, good evening. Next is our agenda approval.
Madam
Dr.
Chair,
Chase?
I would like to make a motion to approve the agenda with the following amendment. I would like to remove 3.01 so that staff can make some corrections to those minutes. And then I also wanted to move 3.14 to discussion, specifically 2401 and 7102. Is it 3.13 now? Or it was, yeah.
3.13, can you repeat that?
Yeah, so to discuss, to move to discussion from 3.13 policies 2401 and 7102.
So, Dr. Chase, the rest of them would stay on consent?
Yes, the rest can stay on
I'll
consent.
second that.
Okay. So we have an approved agenda to remove 3.01, and in 3.13 to remove 2401 and 7102 to information. Okay,
3.01 is just to be moved to the next
meeting, yes, okay. Are there any questions, comments, concerns, or additions? Okay, if you would cast your vote. Tally the vote. Motion passes 6-0. Okay, moving on to consent. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve consent agenda?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, please cast your vote. Alyssa, are you there? Ms. Halsted? No? Okay, I just wanted to give her an opportunity.
Sorry, I'm here. It's
Oh.
a yes. I'm trying to figure out how to maneuver all
Just
this.
say yes. Are
Sorry.
you yes or no?
Yes.
You're a yes,
I'm a
okay.
yes.
Okay, so the consent agenda is 7-0. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to announcements of administrative personnel appointments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 'Tis the season. We are towards the end of one fiscal year and at the beginning of another, and we have a number of administrative announcements that we would like to share. As I call your name, if you could make your way up to the podium to add a few words and share your thoughts with the board, and also to introduce anyone who is joining with you this evening. First up, we would like to welcome Mr. Christopher Zook. Mr. Zook is no stranger to Stafford County Public Schools, as he was our Assistant Director of Safety and Security and Risk Management, and now will serve in the role of Director. Mr. Zook joined Stafford 3 years ago as a supervisor and then as the assistant director of the office, where he now leads. Prior to joining us, Mr. Zook was also the chief security officer for the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative and the senior manager for global security at XPO Logistics Conway, overseeing risk and threat assessments, loss prevention, and safe building design. Mr. Zook previously worked as a Virginia State Trooper and a police officer in the city of Waynesboro. Mr. Zook received his Bachelor of Science degree from the James Madison University and is pursuing a Master of Science degree in Homeland Security through the American Military University. Great to see you, Mr. Zook. Thanks for keeping us safe.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Taylor, thank you for the opportunity. I just want to say I don't take this lightly. I appreciate the confidence that you put into me. And I look forward to building on the strong foundation that we have here in Stafford County Public Schools. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I wonder if she's joined with us this evening. Is your lovely wife, Julie, with you tonight? Okay. All right. Well, lucky her. Not going to say who made out better in that deal, but Mrs. Zook is also on our team Stafford as well and helps out with administrative support. I am so excited to also announce someone who is not a stranger to Stafford County Public Schools, Mr. Scott Elchenko. Mr. Elchenko will serve as the new principal of Margaret Brent Elementary School. Mr. Elchenko has served as Stafford Middle School's principal and previously as Hartwood Elementary School's principal and has been with the division in a principal capacity since 2012. When principal at Hartwood, Mr. Elchenko helped to introduce the school's STEM AI initiative, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math with an arts integration component, program enabling students to show mastery of content in a number of different ways, truly innovative. Hartwood was recognized as a National Title I School of Distinction under his leadership. Prior to his work as principal at Stafford, Mr. Elchenko was also an assistant principal in both Alexandria and King George counties, and as a primary grades teacher in Stafford as well. Mr. Elchenko earned his Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Temple University, his Master of Arts in Elementary Education from Cabrini College, and his Master of Arts in Educational Leadership from Mary Washington University. It's great to have you, Mr. Elchenko.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Madam Chair, board members, thank you again for this opportunity. I'm really excited to serve all the families of Margaret Brent. Really looking forward to this opportunity, so thank you very much. I would like to acknowledge I do have my wife, Erin, here in the audience.
Yay.
So, she's the backbone of the operation, so really appreciate her. And also want to just say hi to my kids who are watching at home. So anyway, so thank you very much.
Thank you. One of the great parts about this time of year is that we also have a number of assistant principal leaders who serve as the future of leadership in Stafford County, and we get to make a number of appointment announcements this evening. First up, and she was appointed in the May 23rd meeting, but is announced this evening, is Stacy Batchelor. She is the assistant principal at Rising Star Early Childhood Center. So Stacy, come on down. She will return to the ranks of administration in Stafford schools as the new assistant principal at Rising Star. This is a long time coming. Ms. Batchelor first served as an assistant principal at Stafford Elementary School in the year 2000 after 7 years of teaching at Hartwood. After taking time for her family, Ms. Batchelor returned to Stafford in 2015 as a teacher, then a math specialist at Grafton Village Elementary School. She has been an active teacher leader since her return, serving as a grade level chair, member of the division leadership team, a summer school lead teacher, and a contributor on our elementary math curriculum team. Ms. Batchelor has a bachelor's degree in elementary education from Indiana University of Pennsylvania, her master's in curriculum and instruction from early childhood from George Mason University, and her administrative certificate from Virginia Commonwealth University. Welcome back, Ms. Batchelor.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor, Madam Chair, and members of the board. I appreciate this opportunity more than I can actually express, so thank you very much for this opportunity. My entire career has been in Stafford County Public Schools, so you heard I've done, a few things over the past couple of decades, and it really is truly a great honor to serve in a new role and to work with the early childhood program and help build it and continue its trajectory in the positive direction. So I just really appreciate your time and your opportunity, so thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, we have not one, but two new assistant principals joining the team at Hampton Oaks Elementary School, and both of them are joining us this evening. First up is Erica Balagan. Mrs. Balagan will be our newest assistant principal at Hampton Oaks. She serves as a counselor at Rock Hill Elementary School and has been there for the last 3 years, supporting the academic and social emotional growth of our students through classroom lessons, short-term counseling, and collaboration with teachers and administrators on individual support plans. Prior to joining the team in Stafford, Ms. Balagan worked as an elementary counselor, school testing coordinator, and middle school teacher in other Northern Virginia school divisions. Ms. Balagan holds her Bachelor of Arts in Speech Communications from North Carolina A&T State University, a Master of Education in Counseling from Virginia State University, and her certificate in educational leadership from William & Mary. So knowing that she comes from the tribe, that's pretty awesome. So welcome, Ms. Balagan.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Taylor for this opportunity. It's a tremendous opportunity. I want to take a moment to just say that I'm so grateful for the opportunities I had while I was at Rock Hill, and thank Mrs. Rivero, Ms. Corwin for all those opportunities and their support. But I'm so excited to start my new journey as a member of the leadership team at Hampton Oaks, and I'm so excited for that. So thank you guys again. Today I have with me my husband Hafiz, my son Zaire, and my daughter Amira. So we are so happy to join. Thank you.
All right, Team Balagan, you got to stand up. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our second team member to join Hampton Oaks Elementary School is also no stranger to Stafford County Public Schools or to the Bandy offices. Mrs. Annie Villanueva joins us as the new assistant principal. Ms. Villanueva is not new to administration in Stafford County, as she is the current assistant director of special education in our Office of Student Support Services. In that role, she works with our high schools and special education services, including transition planning and project search. She also oversees our Child Find program and our partnerships with private day schools to support the success of our youngest and most vulnerable learners. Prior to joining Team Stafford, Mrs. Villanueva was a special education teacher and a teacher on administrative assignment in Prince William County. Mrs. Villanueva holds a Bachelor of Science degree in elementary education from Virginia Commonwealth, a Master of Education in Special Education from Liberty University, and a Master of Educational Leadership from the American College of Education. Great to see you, Annie.
Awesome, thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Taylor, thank you all so much for this opportunity. I actually started my school journey as a kindergartner in Moncure. I graduated from Brook Point in 2007. I grew up in Aquia Harbor, so I'm so excited to get back to this community that gave to me and for this opportunity. I've missed the kids so much. I've loved working in central office, but I've absolutely missed being with the kids, and I'm so excited to grow in this experience. I brought a whole cheering crew. You've probably been hearing them the whole time. But I brought my daughter, Sophia. My other daughter, Gabriella, is back there. My little baby that has been screaming, Miles, he's here. My husband came, and honestly, probably my biggest cheerleader, my mom, who actually retired from the Phoenix Center a couple years ago as their director, so I'm really excited to follow in her footsteps and give back to this community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Jennifer Myers will be joining our elementary administrative team next year as the new assistant principal at Widewater Elementary School. Let's give her a round of applause. Since 2016, Ms. Myers has been a member of the team at Winding Creek Elementary School, First as a fifth grade teacher and currently as the school's math specialist, where she has contributed to the school's school improvement plan and created a response to intervention program to identify students needing additional support to succeed. Prior to joining Team Stafford, Mrs. Myers was both a general education and special education teacher in elementary schools in Alabama, Texas, and Massachusetts. And now she'll be the assistant principal at Widewater Elementary School. Ms. Myers holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in elementary education from Providence College, a Master of Educational Media and Technology from Boston University, and a Master of Educational Leadership and Supervision from the College of William & Mary. Welcome, Mrs. Myers.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to see all of you here tonight. It is an incredible honor, and I'm extremely excited to take on this new leadership position. I've had a wonderful experience being here in Stafford, and they have helped me grow, and I'm excited to share my knowledge. I am here with my family, my support. I have my husband, Timothy, and my two boys, Benjamin and Charlie, who are at North Stafford High School. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our middle level, you'll see that Team Drew is in full effect. Drew Middle School is all here, their administrative team, to support their new assistant principal, Mr. Seamus Gordon, who will become the new assistant principal. Mr. Gordon joined the Drew team this school year as a social studies teacher, where he served as the grade level lead and 504 designee, mentor teacher, and club sponsor. Prior to joining Team Stafford, Mr. Gordon was the International Baccalaureate and Site Testing Coordinator at James Monroe High School in Fredericksburg City, after serving as an IB and AP Spanish teacher at the school for the previous 7 years. Mr. Gordon's first teaching role was a middle school Spanish teaching role in Iowa, where he began serving after his service in the United States Army. Mr. Gordon holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Mary Washington, a Master of Education degree from Purdue University Global, and a postgraduate certificate in educational leadership from Longwood University. Welcome to the team, Seamus.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Thomas, Dr. Taylor, I just want to thank you so much for this opportunity. Stafford has been an amazing place so far in this first year. It's very welcoming. The students and families are amazing, and I'm just really excited to do what I can to help out in furthering that moving forward. Thank you.
Adding strength to our team at Stafford Middle School will be Miss Monica Coates as our new assistant principal. Come on up, Miss Coates. Ms. Coates is also a Brook Point alumnus. Brook Point is well represented this evening in alumni, and is currently the assistant principal at Bull Run Middle School in Prince William County, where in addition to overseeing students and staff in the 8th grade, has served as the division's Code of Conduct Committee and on Site-Based Leadership Committee as well for Prince William County. Ms. Coates was previously an administrative intern in Prince William after 2 decades in the classroom, but all 3 at the middle school level. So congratulations and welcome to the team, Ms. Coates. Ms. Coates holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in elementary education and a graduate certificate in educational leadership from Longwood University, as well as a Master of Business Administration from Averett University. Thank you, Ms. Coates, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Taylor, Madam Chair, members of the board. I am very excited to be back in Stafford County Public Schools, and thank you so much for trusting me and having confidence in me to do the job. I look forward to working with each of you. And tonight, you probably already heard them, but I have my mother, Jeanette Coates, here with me, my brother and sister who are also Brook Point alums, Dwayne Jr. and Simone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Team Coates. Another member of the Prince William team will be joining Stafford County. Mr. Brandon Neal will join us as the newest assistant principal at North Stafford High School. He comes to us from Prince William County, where he served as in the last 6 years as an assistant principal at the independent non-traditional school in both their middle and high school programs. In that role, he supervised all core content areas as well as ESOL services, online learning, and technology services, serving as the acting principal on a couple of different occasions, and contributed to the school's continuous improvement plan. He designed and oversaw the implementation of a behavior management program that led to a 50% reduction in exclusionary discipline and an increased student attendance through active family engagement and connections with community resources and collaboration with counseling and career services. Prior to his administrative work, he was the band director and fine and performing arts department chair at 2 different middle schools in Prince William County. Mr. Neal holds a Bachelor of Music Education from West Virginia University and a Master of Educational Leadership from George Mason University. And Mr. Neal also lives in Stafford County. Welcome home, Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Thank you, Madam Chair and School Board, for this opportunity. As he mentioned, my family was the focus for my move here, and my wife Amanda, my 3 kids, Cadence, Lorelai, and Hudson, are watching remotely here. They attend Stafford schools at Gale and Hartwood. And from day one, when I met Dr. Taylor, he said this is a family division, and that hit home to me that I was driving too much and spending too much time away from home, and came very quickly to come here, and I was honored that Dr. Turner and the administrative team at North Stafford welcomed me with open arms, and I'm very excited to be a part of North Nation. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Point out that Mr. Neal is also wearing North Nation orange this evening. Clearly understood the assignment. Next up is Caesar Masonet. Mr. Masonet will join us as the new assistant principal for Brook Point High School. Mr. Masonet joins us from Prince William County, where for the last 6 years he has served as an administrative coordinator for special education, supporting building administrators and teachers in 9 different schools across all grade levels to provide quality instruction for students with disabilities. In this role, he has also contributed to personnel hiring and evaluation, coordination with other departments to provide coordinated services, and regulatory compliance. Prior to his role, Mr. Masonet was a middle school special education teacher for over a decade. Mr. Masonet holds a Bachelor of Science in Special Education and History from the University of Miami in Florida, and his Master's in Educational Leadership from George Mason University, and is looking forward to the challenge of high school at Brook Point. Welcome, Mr. Masonet.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor, for that great introduction, Madam Chair and board members. Just thank you overall for the opportunity and welcoming me into the Stafford County Public School Board family. And I'm enthusiastically looking forward to getting into the school building, meeting the families, meeting the teachers, the staff, and all the great kids in the school setting. So thank you again for this opportunity. I look forward to the upcoming school year. Not too soon, because I know teachers want a break, but I look forward to the upcoming school year. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I also see that Mr. Masonet brought his new principal, Mr. Murgo, with him this evening, too. So thank you for being here, sir. Our last appointment announcement for this evening is another person returning home to Stafford County and also an alumnus of Brook Point High School. Danny Tryon, welcome home. Mr. Tryon will return to Brook Point as the school's new Director of Athletics and Activities. Mr. Tryon has served in the same role at Riverbend High School in Spotsylvania County for the last 3 years, following 1 year as an Assistant Director of Student Activities in Fairfax County. Prior to his administrative work, Mr. Tryon was a teacher in Stafford for 14 years. During this time, he worked with students in all grades K through 12 and served as a school testing coordinator, a department chair, and served as the head coach of the Blackhawks boys basketball team. Mr. Tryon holds a Bachelor of Science in Health, Physical Education, and Recreation from Virginia Commonwealth University, and a Master of Education in Administration and Supervision from the University of Phoenix. Welcome home, Mr. Tryon.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Taylor, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm extremely excited to be back in Stafford County. I'm really thrilled to be in the community that I grew up in. A lot of Blackhawks in the house, which I like. But thank you so much for the opportunity. I can't wait to get started. I'm really eager and anxious to get started. I couldn't be where I'm at without the support of my lovely wife, Chelsea, who's here. She's also a Brook Point grad and a former Stafford County employee. So thank you for everything. And thank you all so much.
Thank you. Madam Chair, this concludes administrative appointment announcements.
Thank you very much. We're excited. Fill it up. All right, moving on to presentations, a video recap of the 2023 senior walks and graduation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to present two short videos honoring the class of 2023. This first video recaps our division's annual tradition of senior walks, where we invite all of our graduating high school seniors to visit their former elementary schools. Madam Chair might know a thing or two about this tradition in Stafford County. Our second video is a compilation of our graduation ceremonies. We would like to extend our congratulations to the class of 2023 at this time, and we hope that our graduates feel inspired and empowered to excel in everything that they do. Please enjoy our two videos.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Taylor. Next is 3.02, the annual report and recommendations of the School Board School Health Advisory Committee.
Good evening, Dr. Taylor, Madam Chair, school board members. My name is Dr. Amanda Harvey, and this evening I'm going to present to you some initial research that the School Health Advisory Committee has completed thus far on your request. So I should have a PowerPoint. Let's see, it is not up. Here we are. Here we go. Right, we are not a PowerPoint, we are a PDF, so we will be going through a PDF instead. Yeah, I know. All right, so as I suggested, my name is Dr. Amanda Harvey, and today I'm going to present to you the initial study from your inquiry in January. So earlier this year, you tasked SHAC with investigating the wellness opportunities offered by the schools to promote wellness in 3 various areas: mental or emotional wellness, physical wellness, and social wellness. Before we could really get into our study, we had to understand what is wellness and what is well-being, right? So we went to the well-being wheel here, and it's got 8 different components. And so we defined wellness as an active process in which individuals reach their optimal well-being. So then, what is well-being? Well-being is this optimal and dynamic state in which individuals achieve their full potential through their own pursuit, but also through the support of the community. And this is where the Stafford County School Board comes in. You are the support of the community. So in order for your staff and students to meet their optimal and dynamic state to achieve their full potential, they need your support along with their internal pursuit. Some of the materials for our study included an open questionnaire that we sent to approximately 94 of the Stafford County Public School employees. That includes social workers, nurses, psychologists, principals, athletic directors. We kind of targeted certain positions, sent in this open questionnaire, and through a 20-day period in January and February, we got about 42 responses, or about 45%. 31 were female, 11 were male, but we had about equal representation throughout the elementary, middle, and high schools at 15, 13, and 12 respectively. Our methods, this is your open questionnaire, and I do believe that you probably got this beforehand, so you can see some of the questions here. We're really open about what are the wellness opportunities available to your current staff, what are some that you can suggest, what are your barriers that you are currently identifying. And again, it was that 20-day period which we collected all of this data. So what are the results of this very broad, open-ended questionnaire that we sent out? I am going to present them to you in 2 different sections. First, we're going to talk about student mental, social, and physical health, and then we'll talk about staff mental, social, and physical health. And the results it's important to note that all of the results vary by school type, whether that's elementary, high, or middle school, and by site, which is the school. So each school has various wellness opportunities. So some of the student social health current opportunities include things like field trips and dances. You get sports in middle school and high school. But some of the suggested services that we found in our survey were adventure and nature clubs, social media education for all grade levels, elementary, middle, and high school, family education, and also teen dating violence education in your middle and high school. You'll see throughout this presentation of our results here a legend. And the star here in this legend represents some opportunities that are currently in progress through your wellness ambassadors, through the central office. The little up arrow here represents previous suggestions from the SHAC committee throughout the last 13 years of our service. And then the very last one is the plus sign, and that is some of our future suggestions as well. that we are going to promote. In the student mental health category, some current offered services include your social workers and your psychiatrists and psychologists. You have calming corners in some of your elementary schools, which are very successful. But again, this isn't all through all elementary schools. You have meditation and yoga in some of your schools. But if you look over at the suggested services, you also see meditation and yoga as being suggested at all levels. So there is an incongruency here across your sites where some schools have these opportunities and some schools do not. Other suggested services include healthy snacks, more breaks, outside stuff, comprehensive suicide education, that's been suggested for years, and comprehensive drug education. One of the other ones here is a Zen zone, and you'll see this repeated as well. It's kind of like the elementary calming corners, but it offers middle and high school students a place to go and calm down when they're dysregulated. Student physical health current opportunities, of course, everyone has PE classes and after-school clubs and organized sports at the high school and middle school level. You have some booster-ons and such. But the suggested services for student physical health, including helping organize fitness clubs for those schools that are lacking them, finding charity or community sponsorships for some of our school teams, more outdoor time, comprehensive family life education, open gym and flex times, and then concussion and brain injury education for your staff. Moving along, we want to point out some staff mental health opportunities that are currently offered. And if you look at the stars here, you have wellness bingo and a wellness calendar and Headspace app going on with Dr. Emma Jurgens at the central office. They also currently have mental health check-ins and some after-school activities, but other suggested services include more walking groups, gym and fitness center discounts, those Zen zones, the teachers are really interested in Zen zones, and more counselors for your teachers. You have counselors for your students, but you don't have counselors for your teachers. And that is a big point that has been previously suggested. For staff physical health, you have walking clubs and some yoga. You have a pickleball. There's an elementary school that has a pickleball league, which is pretty neat. Other suggested services are really raising awareness. It doesn't seem like the communication for the opportunities is all that well broadcast across your sites. You have open gym hours before and after, increased interest clubs, and one of the big ones was to adjust the start time for and end time for middle school. You'll see this over and over again. The middle school staff and students have a difficult time having after-school activities with the school time. Last one here, what are your staff social health opportunities? You can see you have a variety of social health opportunities for your staff, including breakfast and potlucks. The 8 dimensions of wellness is currently being incorporated into some of your staffing opportunities, apparel purchases, team building, holiday parties. Some further suggestions are including just that promotion of these activities. Again, communication across all sites seems to be just not congruent. You have wellness challenges, social activities, and at the central office level, they're doing annual surveys for the wellness staff. So what does this all mean? I just threw at you a bunch of things that you could do, you do already, you could possibly do. So let me take you through what are some of your barriers for some of these current offers and suggested offers, and then what are your paths forward? Of course, money and time. Surprise, right? That's always a barrier. One of the big barriers here is that there have been previous attempts at wellness opportunities such as yoga classes that have been cut from previous budgets. Opportunities to pay staff a little bit extra to be that yoga instructor at their school, cut from previous budgets. Money's always an issue. You just got to figure out how and what is your priority with your budget. Is it your staff wellness or not? Is it your student wellness or not? Time, of course, that middle school start time, that was a big issue for the middle school, and their dismissal time, too late for school activities, space, transportation, schedules, planning and coordination. But one of the bigger ones we've identified is sort of a lack of support from the school board. Over the last 13 years, we've offered 31 various suggestions, and you've implemented 5 at 16%. And some of these are things that are coming up again from your staff. Your staff are identifying these needs. SHAC has identified these needs over the years. They haven't been a priority in the budget or in, I guess, the agenda. Some of these that have come up in the past years are better suicide education, domestic violence education, drug education and support. Your McKinney-Vento student support, which is your students experiencing homelessness, they need more support. Increased social work and psychiatric support for your staff. So, all of these barriers, how do we move forward? What can you do, right? You make wellness opportunities, support, and education a priority in this budget. We're about to make the budget committee. You want this to happen in your schools, you put it in this year's budget. You have you hired that wellness ambassador. It's a great start. Dr. Juergens is doing wonderful things. You add it to the 5-year plan. You make wellness into Stafford County's public school 5-year plan a priority. This is how you get better suicide education. This is how you get better opportunities. This is how you get your teachers to stay. You increase staff wages to attract wellness-focused employees to stay. You get community partnerships. You are the community, but also the local gyms, the local interest groups. Those are your community too that you have to lean on in order to make this actionable items. But what we wanted to do is pick out some really low-hanging fruit that you guys could really implement fast in the school year. So what does that look like for your staff? Those are those Zen zones. Find a nice little quiet closet, turn it into a spot where the teachers can go and decompress after a very rowdy class. Have those open gym hours before and after school. Have those yoga classes. Expand walking and interest clubs to all of your school sites and increase their breaks. Some of the student low-hanging fruit was adjusting that middle school time. Elementary, have intramural sports for your elementary schools. Zen zones for your students as well in high school and middle school, like the calming corners in elementary school. Open gym hours. Update your middle school and high school health education curriculum, the domestic violence, the suicide curriculum, family life education. All of those need to be updated and comprehensive, and include social media education at all levels. For the future, the SHAC committee would like to possibly expand our sample size from our targeted main sample. We want to poll other groups and students and get the student perspective of their well-being. This is the next step that we took just recently, was to approve a very similar questionnaire to send out to students at the high school and middle school level to see what they think of their well-being that's being offered by the school system. We would like to explore some of the other dimensions as applicable, identify those groups that really do need the additional help, those students experiencing homelessness and such. Develop ways that students can actually use the well-being wheel, and then of course partner with the central office for their wellness staff and use some of the data that they've collected to expand this research. And that is all I have.
Thank you very much. That's awesome. All right, I will go down the line. Well, first I want to see if, Ms. Halstead, are you with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, awesome. So let me go on record as saying a couple of things, like special thanks to the SHAC. I mean, originally there was a miscommunication regarding when they were going to present to us the results of what they had been working on. And so there was a fervent effort in the beginning to put all of this information together, thinking they were going to present sooner than they did. So I had asked everyone if it would be okay if they presented the information that they had acquired early on, because I felt like that would help us, hopefully, maybe moving forward with an understanding of some of the things the SHAC maybe could be focusing on rather than recommendations, but also be working on helping us kind of get things started moving forward, which I think is important. Let me also say that I feel that the representation piece now, the way that committees are designed, the advisory committees, having representation from each of the districts, to me, presents so much of a stronger stance for being able to actually take our advisory committees and do things with them, having our citizens involved and really get, this committee happens to be very, very, special to me just because the health aspect is special to me, but also just in seeing their passion for this topic and in really wanting to get to the root of things. So I just want to touch on two things that they said, Dr. Harvey, and thank you so much. You did wonderful, and I'm so appreciative of all the work and all the stress that I'm sure this caused you to get it out there so fast for us. But, you know, it's really just a snapshot view of what we're looking at across Stafford County, but it's so telling of all of the things that we can be doing. Dr. Taylor, I owe you a special thank you for being exceptionally open to really listening to and value help for our community from outside sources, including national foundations and organizations, so that Stafford County isn't reinventing the wheel, but that we're hopefully putting things into place for our kids and students that support these mental health services, but also physical services or physical health services moving forward. I feel very, very strongly about the fact that the student mental health piece is important, but that we also do have a very strong and large section of our student population that isn't as active physically as they used to be. And I think some of that also lends itself to, you know, physical activity typically lends to adrenaline boosts, which increase endorphins, which help mental health and fitness in that regard. So I'd like to see us really focusing on how to enhance those things moving forward. I also just want to say for our staff and understanding some of the tribulations that they face, I'd love to be able to see us do fun days for them throughout the day. Maureen and I or Ms. Sigmund and I have often joked about doing a Dunk the School Board Member Day, or you know, have something where the teachers can get more actively involved and have a little bit more fun. And so I really hope that we as a board and we as a community come together and support everything that the SHAC is going to be moving forward to helping us implement. But I also hope that we can help guide the SHAC more effectively as well moving forward. So that's all I wanted to say on that. Thanks so much again, guys. I appreciate you letting me participate virtually as well. So thanks, Dr. Harvey. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Halstead. I would like to go down the line if anybody has any questions they would like to add. Dr.
Madam Chair,
Chase?
can I interrupt
Oh,
for just
yes.
a moment? And I was wondering if you would like to introduce or welcome your members of your committee that are here.
My committee is here in the second row. I have my secretary, Beth Mason, Cassandra Gardner. This is our advisor, Colette, Adam Fairchild, and Maggie. I cannot remember your last name, I'm very sorry. Hoffman, and Miss Maggie Hoffman. And then also we have Mike Justice, our other co-chair over here. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Chase?
Yeah, so I noticed under student mental health, you note that we currently offer no cell phone use for elementary school and middle school. Did you have any recommendation for high school?
No, because at the high school level, it is more about social media education. Mm-hmm. This is their world. We can't take it away from them, but we can educate them on how to appropriately and in a healthy manner use that technology. At the elementary and middle school level, yes, no cell phone use. It's not appropriate in that type of setting at that age. But the social media education that we and other teachers are suggesting start as young as elementary school and go into high school, and that comes back to this phone use policy.
Yeah, I mean, do you know offhand, we have been getting notifications of schools that have completed the sort of
Common sense.
Common sense, and do we have any high schools that have completed that yet?
Mr. Cook just said one.
One, yeah. And so it is concerning to me that we have a big push. I mean, it's sort of like PTAs, right? PTOs, they're very active in elementary and middle, very active in elementary, slack off in middle, and then are almost non-existent in high school, and yet that's where we are really seeing the biggest impact. And, you know, the Surgeon General recently has really pushed on social media and its effect on the mental health of our high school students. And I'm very concerned about how we're actually going to make something happen here. But yeah, I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Warner?
Thank you for all the effort that you've put into this report. I do appreciate it, and I think that there are a lot of good suggestions here, and I wish that we could fund everything. And it's not even just a question of funding, it's finding the time in the day. You know, it would be great to let kids take a 15-minute walkabout, but how do you take 15 minutes out of the instructional day? These things are always have to be weighed. I do like the idea of comprehensive, you know, offering suicide and drug education. I think that's an important intervention in preventing drug abuse and and suicide. But again, you know, there's a tremendous variation in the programs that are available. How do you recommend selecting something that would be effective and implementable? And is that a word? Implementable.
Sounds good.
There are studies across the U.S. that actually have looked at a lot of these programs because they're not new. So you have the effectiveness of, for example, comprehensive family life education versus other forms of family life education. Social media education versus no social media education. There are social science studies out there who already look at the impacts to students who have had this education versus those who do not have this education. And what we could do as a committee is explore some of these things for you all. We could look into, hey, what are the programs that are available for social media education on the educator level? Do we have any success stories through the peer research that support this one as maybe perhaps slightly better, or this one as more comprehensive, or something to that effect? So if this is a path that you all would like for us to explore and then come back and present and say, hey, these are our options for social media education that are used across our nation, these are the ones that are successful and not so successful, that is definitely something that SHAC could do.
Thank you. I think it would be nice to have some idea of what to use and how to integrate it so that it can be implemented in a student setting without too much disruption to learning. So I think that's really the challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like I said, we can come forward and provide you with, here's the peer review research for this opportunity, but again, it's on the educator level. They need their input as well. This is from a health perspective. All of us are professionals in some type of health field, so coming in with the educator perspective is the second kind of tier of this.
Ms. Sigmund?
I too, like Dr. Chase, was really glad to see the cell phone recommendation on there. It's certainly something, you know, we need to talk about and if not legislate on, for lack of a better language, but definitely educate on at all levels. I did have a question about on the material section where you talked about the populations you sent the surveys out to. I was surprised to not see guidance counselors on the list. Was that intentional? Was that like phase two? Or that was included?
It was an accident. Okay. I think we meant to do it. It was very quick.
Yeah.
And Mr. Justice
and
here
really
really
helped
helped
phase
us.
one and phase two. And
yes.
I would really like some of the things I would have expected guidance counselors to recommend. You know, executive functioning leads to a lot. You know, especially I have a new high schooler and a new middle schooler, and figuring out all their stuff can lead to so many, you know, to one, the need of some of these other interventions and supports. So it's like attacking it from both ends. But I would love to see a phase two of whatever audience you decide next, because I really do like the form that they had and the feedback we're getting. I like the idea of kind of addressing the flex time opportunities, because that's time we actually do have built into our day, and how can we make better use of what we already have, you know, because that we have the time, we can, you know, incorporate it with an existing budget to streamline, and maybe, you know, that type of low-hanging fruit is what is most appealing to me. So I really love this presentation. I thank you guys all for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sigmund. Ms. Healy?
Yes, it's amazing you could do this month in just a few months. I mean, it's very impressive to put this together.
Thank you.
And I really like the thoroughness of it, not just giving the responses, but identifying the barriers and the path forward. And, as the former liaison to the SHAC, I appreciate the little nudge that this board has done so little in response to suggestions in the past. So that's, you were very kind in the way that was presented. But I would ask this board, particularly now, the post-COVID, and we're all much more cognizant of the mental health, and wellness issues, both for staff and students, that perhaps this is the time to give it more attention. That having been said, you also recognize the financial constraints, but part of your path forward that I'm very interested in pursuing is the community partnerships, because we have such a wealth of people and businesses in our community that want to help the schools, and I would encourage Dr. Taylor to pursue that, with your, perhaps your business advisory groups, your faith advisory groups, just generally, but also to reach out to some of the retirement communities that you were at with Celebrate. There may be people that have these skills that would be willing to come for it, no cost for us, and that could be a win-win. So thank you for all you've done. I see this is the initial report, so I'm looking forward to part 2.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Healy. Ms. Guy?
Thank you so much. I think you did a wonderful job. I did have some questions, I think, but I processed slow and you went fast, but I know you only have like 3 minutes.
Yeah,
So,
it's like a little bitty window.
I love how you called this out, because I always think that people should always punch up. So I thought it was great. But I think that the awesome thing is you do have a board who is incredibly community facing. And so I know we'll definitely look into a lot of it. I love the idea of breaks for students, and how you framed it perfectly for me, which is what's a priority. For me, I've had students who get 600 on their SOLs, but they also have testing anxiety. So I'd rather my kid be happy and healthy and, pass, sorry, Dr. Taylor, but, than to get the higher score. So I feel like we got to find time in the day to give them a 5-minute mandatory get up and wiggle break or something. I don't know. We have to figure that out, right? I love the concussion education part of it. My kid came home with a concussion. Nobody knew. But maybe if someone had seen, we wouldn't have let her go to sleep and whatever. And then the pickleball for staff, am I allowed to join? I don't know how that goes, but maybe. Okay, all right, no. But I thought that.
You might be able to
I thought that
create
was
your
great.
own team. That would be the step, is the
Yes.
school board team against I do believe it's an elementary school.
I
who
think
has the
these
pickleball
ideas
league.
are fantastic. The social media education piece, I love that. I would love that to, everyone should be able to do that, the entire community, because we desperately need it, especially because so many young students in elementary school have phones, which I'm not going to comment. So I was thinking, because money is a barrier, but also I think space. For some schools, I don't know where they don't even have closets.
That was
extra
the third
closets.
biggest one, is space.
But this is in the future. Maybe some of our trailers that we will eventually get rid of, maybe we can turn that into a Zen cottage or something. And maybe place one at each school. Maybe we need 2. And, we've already paid for them, so maybe it won't cost that much. I don't know, we'll have the FAB look at it or something. I thought it was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine?
So like everyone else, the presentation was awesome. I really loved it. So much of what you said really resonated, especially because as student representatives, Meraki and I have been working on pursuing a mental health plan to improve mental health in the county. So I was so thrilled to see you advocating for suicide education. That's one of our main priorities, because suicide, it is a reality in our school system. So it's so important to inform our students about that. I did have one quick question. So I believe you mentioned a wellness survey you conducted?
It is for the staff.
For the staff, okay, I wasn't sure.
The central, there are 2, so let me explain. The central office is doing one for the staff, and then we are going to take our same questionnaire and send it out to your student body.
Awesome. So I was just curious when that would go out and whether results of that will be public or?
We were trying to get it out at the end of the school year. I don't know if it happened, so look for it at the very beginning of the school year.
Okay.
And then we should, we have more meetings in the fall that we can look at some of this further data that we've collected and hopefully include the counselors. That was one of our big, I don't think they got CC'd on that really quickly. So we had the same thought, like, oh, what happened to that very important group of people? So students will be on it, counselors, social workers, if that wasn't on there, I think they were, but there were a couple of other groups that we really want to touch base with on this exact topic.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
I also would like to thank you all for this report. I think that pointing out how we've missed the mark on some of these things, but we're coming into a point where it's just so glaringly obvious the things that we need. And I know, even things like the power hour at the high schools, I remember standing, I went and visited all 5 high schools, but standing and I thought, I've seen those same pajama pants go by me like 5 times. And they're like, oh yeah, they do like a whole walking group, they do their eat. So it's nice to see that some students did that themselves, but I know other students probably need the encouragement or the idea presented and not just saying, oh, there's those pajama pants again, and not paying attention to what those pajama pants are doing. But I think that, even I know for my son in his senior year, they did a lot of walk and talks as a class. And so that was kind of, an interesting thing for them. But they really did enjoy their walk and talks about, as they were reviewing with each other, the teacher would pose questions and they would walk and talk through some of their answers and things like that. So, it definitely can be done. And even in coming up with ways to highlight, maybe you don't have a particular, maybe it's not offered every month, but maybe you highlight in a month because it's attracting this group and maybe it's not attracting that group. But then the next topic you bring in, they're like, well, wait a minute, I see a pattern here. There's different things. And, to find out staff interest or student interest by just trying something, try something once a month for staff or once a month for students and see how it builds. And then try something else and they may be like, oh, I would love that. Oh, I could try this. So I think that there's a lot that we can glean from this, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you. I think the wellness calendar that the central office is really taking on probably is some of those same ideas that you had with this month is this theme and this month is that theme. That's one of the points that we want to further our research on, is looking into what exactly is the central office doing besides understanding that they're doing a bingo and a wellness calendar and they're using the Headspace app. So I know Dr. Emma has some data that we want to incorporate into this to help you guys better understand what your staff is doing in the last year with your wellness ambassadors.
Right. I appreciate that a lot.
Madam Chair, if I could just jump in when you're done. Really
Sure,
quick. I
Ms.
just wanna say
Halstead,
one
go ahead.
thing.
Go ahead.
So I want to comment on what Dr. Chase was saying, and I think we are all, and Dr. Chase are on the same page, I know, on this one, which is, the screen time addictions and the things that we look at with cell phone and the way kids measure their self-esteem these days towards the, oh my God, everybody liked me on Facebook or didn't, or, showed me approval on something. I'd like to also see us look on ways that we can not only just work on the social media piece, helping kids understand how it can help them, but also how it can hurt them, but ways that they can use social media to increase future potential for themselves. I think that's the one thing we miss out on when we start to look at those things. But I am 100%. Someone said to me one day that the biggest problem with social media isn't that kids are using it, it's that parents aren't aware of what kids are using it for. And so for me, that's a really a huge deal. And I'd like to really, I hope this board focus on. I get that we don't want to ban our kids from using social media, but there's so little that we can't do inside the schools where social media is concerned, that I just want to make sure we're doing as much as we can to help them while we can. And that's just my final thought on that. I just have so many thoughts on social media, and so many of them are conflicting. I get it, it's their reality, but it's a hurtful reality, and that makes me sad. So I just want to make sure that we can move forward, particularly with the Shack, and particularly because we're so expansive of a group now, and we cover such a wide dynamic of thought processes, and I want to see us really utilize that moving forward.
Thank you very much, Ms. Halstead, and thank you very much, Dr. Harvey. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're moving on to our student rep report.
Alrighty, hello everyone. So I hope everyone is having a great summer so far. First of all, I'd just like to say awesome job to all of our students for finishing out the year. And I'd also like to extend a huge congratulations to our graduating class of 2023. We're so proud of you, and we wish you luck in all of your future endeavors. I'd also like to take a quick second to thank whoever put together those 2 videos earlier, because those were incredible. The whole time Rocky and I were just like looking at each other like, oh my gosh, that's us next year. So thank you, those were wonderful. To all the students who will be returning to Stafford schools next year, we look forward to seeing you in August. So just a really quick update for today. I'd like to once again remind students that Meraki and I have worked hard to create a blog that is available on the Stafford County webpage. So here Meraki and I post updates about the goings-ons in the county every couple of months. So a huge aspect of our blog is the Google survey, which is linked at the bottom. So this gives students an opportunity to directly come to us with their questions and their concerns. As always, we encourage all of our students to take advantage of this opportunity. Any input is hugely valuable to us, and Meraki and I will use it to guide our decisions. So next, I'm going to go ahead and take a couple of minutes to touch on something that Meraki and I are really passionate about, something you're probably familiar with by this point, as I think I've been bringing it up the past couple of meetings, and so that's the mental health initiative that we're currently working on. So I believe last board meeting, after working with Dr. Schutz and Dr. Taylor, who've both been such huge helps in this process, I notified the board that I would be moving forward with an end-of-the-year mental health survey. I love my surveys, so we sent out another one. And I'm really pleased to report that the results have come back and the data is actually really significant and super helpful. So this survey was distributed on May 17th and asked several brief but targeted questions about mental health. It was distributed to all middle and high school students across the county. So this is about 20,000 students, which is quite a lot. And of these 20,000 students, we had about 7,000 people respond, which is quite an improvement from the 27 responses I got in my last survey. Regardless, we're so grateful to everyone who participated in the survey. The results have really been instrumental in guiding the development of our mental health initiative. So I really don't want to take up a whole lot of time, but I want to quickly overview some of the notable features of the survey. So this survey covered questions pertaining to recent mood and emotions in students, students' behaviors when they're feeling sad, whether students have someone they feel comfortable talking about their feelings with. So I believe in the near future, I will have a work session that will allow me to explain some of this data in more detail. But for now, I'm going to quickly highlight just a couple trends that I think to be pretty important. So first, I'm pleased to report that when asked about mood in the past 1 to 2 weeks, 4,639 students reported feeling happy. So this figure represents well over half the students, which was really awesome to see. So this is a great positive trend in our students. However, there was one trend that did stand out to me as very alarming, and which I would like to pursue further as a part of this mental health plan. So one of the questions I asked in our survey was, who do you talk to when you're not feeling your best? Students were given the options of an adult in school, an adult out of school, friends, and parents, with the ability to select the other option and write in their own response. So, of the 7,051 responses we received, 1,346 students responded other to this question. And of those 1,346 students, 662 who selected other wrote some variation of no one, nobody, myself, I feel like I can't talk to anyone, which was incredibly sad and concerning. 662 students saw this question and went out of their way to write that they felt they had no one to talk to when they were feeling sad or upset. This was by far the majority of the written responses we received. So based on this information, I'm hoping that a major facet of the mental health campaign that we are launching We'll be making resources like counselors and teachers and psychologists accessible to students so that every student in our county feels like they have someone to turn to when they're not feeling their best. I mean, even providing students with one person who they feel comfortable talking to could make the difference in their lives. I am so excited to work with the board and superintendent to begin resolving this issue in Stafford schools. Mental health is such a huge concern in our school system, and I'm very ready to not only see it improve, but also have the opportunity to facilitate this improvement. So, I know this was a lot of information. There are a lot of details I really did not have time to cover, so if you have any questions that come to mind right now, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, feel free to email them to me later, and I'd be more than happy to try my best to respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. Okay, we will keep going to citizen comments. Ms. Hall?
Yes, Madam Chair, you have 3 individuals who have signed up to speak. The first is a Mr. or Ms. Taylor Thomas, followed by Molly Denham, and then Ms. Shannon Fingerholtz.
Okay, if you all would come forward. I think the other's not here, so let's have you, Miss, are you Molly?
Yes.
Okay, come forward. Thank you.
Okay. Molly Denham, I'm from the Heartwood District. I've been a vocal advocate over the past year promoting the dual elementary school build. With the supervisors approving the budget for elementary 18 and 19, you would expect the next step to be the execution of this plan. I mean, it has been a year of planning, hasn't it? I have notes from meetings over the last year stating elementary 18 would likely be placed next to the new high school, and elementary 19 would likely be at one of the 2 proffered Embry Mill sites. This board has twice now voted against building elementary 19 at Embry Mill, going against the information given to the public over the past year. This board has gone off in their own direction without so much as a whisper of information to the public on what the new direction or plan may be. You have ferreted yourself away in closed-door sessions and made decisions totally disregarding transparency and public education. When asked about the decisions, the public has been given nothing. I sent a tersely worded, and I will admit, not very polite email to a board member and was told, quote, "When I'm released from the obligation that precludes me from discussing information, you are more than welcome to reach out to me, and I will tell you exactly why I made the decision I made." In addition, it stated, "I'm not going to, nor will I try to, justify my decision. In the long run, when all the information is presented, people will understand why it went down the way it did. I'm sorry, but this just isn't good enough, and I certainly am not waiting until a decision has already been made before getting educated and making up my own mind on what is right for this county. I also submitted a formal complaint against the closed session held on 9 May, as I don't believe the discussion was within the Virginia Code requirements as it relates to acquisition of real property. However, in a response by Division Counsel, I was told, quote, "The school board does not take minutes or recordings of closed meetings, so who knows what was discussed?" This tells me that there is no recourse for the public to question your actions or hold you accountable for your subsequent vote. This is totally unacceptable and irresponsible of this board. Perhaps the civics lesson is in order. U.S. government bodies, of which this board is one, is responsible for transparency and providing information to citizens about the actions being taken. Right now, this board is doing the exact opposite, and I, for one, will not stand for it. Your own website and budget package has a very nice organizational chart correctly showing the citizens of Stafford County as the head of your organization instead of the school board as it has in past years. As a citizen of this county, I demand transparent planning for elementary 19. I demand you educate the public on the future expansion plan, and I demand you quit hiding behind closed sessions and tell the public how you plan to do as promised and build elementary 18 and 19 together. I would like to remind you that this board is not the end-all be-all of decisions for the schools in this county, and that you have a responsibility to the residents to be open and transparent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Fingerholtz?
First of all, I'd like to say Happy Pride Month. While we grow to understand each other, may we also respect each other in our individual humanity and truly see each other as whole and worthy no matter what our unique journey. So that's really important to me.
At this point, parcel number 2953K, which is in Embry Mill, has been voted on twice as a location for Elementary 19. In my notes, I actually left it blank because I didn't know if maybe you guys were going to vote again today after that closed session that didn't happen. So the location and the purpose has publicly been discussed. Since this is proffered land, there is no price negotiation that is needed. I'm asking that all discussions in relation to this specific parcel and its viability for Elementary 19 be held in open forum, as it no longer meets the requirements needed for a closed session. Discussing this in front of the community will not impact your bargaining with a company or with an individual. So with whom would this open discussion adversely affect? Who do we need to continue bargaining with? Each other? The Board of Supervisors? Staff? I appreciate the discussions I have had with board members in reference to mine and other parents' concerns. I truly, truly appreciate the time that y'all have taken to respond to me. It would be great if the rest of Stafford could also hear your thoughts. Let's not point fingers, let's not play games, let's not hide the whys. This causes more division, more confusion within the community between both these boards and between the school families, because now you have schools saying, well, see, now we need to be first again. We're not a unified front anymore. When 19 is not able to be built in unison with 18 because of our discussions, resulting in costing our community millions more in tax dollars, more time in crowded schools, and the stress of 2 back-to-back redistricting, we will want to know exactly where everyone stood and their whys. Hopefully, it will increase the understanding and maybe decrease some of the frustration that will happen after that. In the meantime, while you are passing over this land that is the 80% solution that is available right now and allows us more time to plan for number 20 a lot better, could you please use the restroom in the community center? Because that's what our children will have to do in their trailers. And push your chair back against the wall and stand for all the rest of the meetings until you can come to a joint solution. Because that's what we say about our kids. They need seats, right? So maybe we take your guys' away for a little while until you can figure it out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to our discussion items. There are 2, 2401 and 7102. Let's see. Dr. Chase?
Yeah, so I was particularly interested in 2401. There were a number of different things on the listed as 2401, but what I was particularly interested in was questions about cell phones. So there was some discussion of trying to clarify that cell phones on the buses were a privilege, and then there was pulling the cell phone policy out because it, I guess, is in the regulation, or?
Thank you, Ms. Boatwright.
Sure. So every year we have a code of conduct committee, and it's comprised of administrators and people of that nature. And there was discussion about cell phones being able to be used on the bus. And so there was a clarification that it's a privilege and it's not a right, so it can be taken away. And so they thought it was a good idea to include that actually in writing.
I guess the issue for me, and I mean, I've had issues with cell phones prior to this year, but for me personally, I'm ready to just ban cell phones from our schools. I am tired of having discipline committee meetings where we find out that teachers were not enforcing the existing policy and it resulted in problems. I'm tired of students who are traumatized by what other students have done with their cell phones. I'm just personally at a place where I'm just done. And so for me, when the Code of Student Conduct comes forward, if cell phones are allowed, I'll be voting it down, for me, because I'm just fed up with what I've been seeing this year. And so I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on 2401.
Dr. Warner?
I was appalled to find out only one of our elementary and middle schools has a cell phone policy. I think at the very least, we should be eliminating them from all elementary and middle schools. And then be having serious conversations about high school. It's a source of bullying. A lot of times, the discipline issues we have, they're fights that spill over at school and then carry their way over at home on the weekends. So the cell phone is a mechanism for a lot of these problems to take place. So I have to agree with Dr. Chase on this.
Okay, yes, Ms. Sigmund?
I feel strongly about stronger restriction on cell phone as well. And in the absence of that, regarding this particular with buses, I have other concerns with bus use, even if we don't touch anything else, because when they're on their buses, they're not scrambled like they are in schools. They're on their open air, and we can't protect the content. And I know that I've heard from parents, especially in the elementary level, what a fifth grader might be watching on his phone on the bus may not be appropriate for the kindergartner in the seat next to him or the seat behind him. And there's a 6-year age range of those elementary kids on a bus, and what those students are watching or playing may or may not be appropriate. That's home conversations that become school conversations, and we can't control that because we don't control the Wi-Fi out there. So I would actually prefer to see that we don't allow cell phones on buses, except when we grant the exceptions rather than always unless we take it away. I could see if, kids are driving down to Williamsburg or something, you might let them use their phones as a treat for a long bus ride, but, or a sports team where it's a much smaller group, but your daily morning commute, I think that's a struggle.
Okay, anyone else? Oh, Ms. Healy?
Well, I appreciate what you all are commenting, and certainly it's nothing we haven't heard before. But I would be concerned about the students that have an hour-plus bus ride each way, because I think there could be a legitimate use of the cell phone, during that bus ride. Now, if a student's on the bus ride for 10 or 15 minutes, that's one thing, but when you're spending a couple hours a day, and we're not talking about just a couple students. I mean, the students that are on the outlying parts of the county, I would certainly want to take that into consideration. And also, not tonight, but at some point fairly soon, I'd like to hear from our student representatives, because I think they may have a somewhat different perspective. I don't know which way it would go, but I think they're here, to give us that student perspective, and that would certainly be important to me before making, a decision. I remember when the cell phone policy came in, there was a lot of angst, and perhaps we have not really maintained it, as it could have been maintained, and certainly merits a review, but I'm not ready to just throw it out completely. Thank you.
Ms. Guy?
Madam
I'll call it, just one second, Alyssa, I'll call on you.
Sorry,
No, you're fine. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Guy?
I agree that I would like to look at it. Personally, I don't like children having cell phones. I was a good parent, but my kids probably couldn't stand me because I didn't allow my kids to have cell phones until they were super old. But I also don't believe that what is right for my home is right for everybody's, right? So I am very open to this discussion. When we talk about buses, what's the cutoff? 30-minute bus ride? Well, is something a 30-minute bus ride, but then they get stuck in traffic, and then how does the bus driver regulate that, right? Because their eyes are forward and the seats are high, and for the majority of their lives, like the kids are short, and so, bus drivers can't see a kid hit someone, so how can they see who's on the phone? I don't know how we do this, but I would lean towards restricting cell phone use, because when it comes to discipline, a lot of the issues are starting, that like the impetus of the issue is if they didn't have that phone, we wouldn't have, been dealing with some things. So, but I know that they can do good as well. I know that sometimes students literally have their phones out to do work in class sometimes. So I'm slightly torn, but leaning towards I can't stand cell phones.
Ms. Halsted?
I just want to point out, if I was there, this would be one of the times where I would hug Maya and tell her that that's why I love her. Because, so I agree, but going back to what's gone on in the governance sessions about this, and we were given a report about an actual survey that was given to parents about whether, and so some of the concerns were, what if my kid is on the bus and they're elementary school, and the elementary school, like, what if they're late? I want to be able to. So there's so many compartments that each of these cell phone pieces go into, right? There's that, hey, I have an emergency and I want to get in touch with my son or daughter. Yes, that is a reason why I should have a cell phone. But then there's these other sort of more elaborate reasons why they shouldn't have it, which is the bullying, and it's exactly what Dr. Chase is talking about. And the bottom line, so I felt, the bottom line is, as a school board, I guess we could ban them in schools, but then the question is, how far is our reach to actually having that make an impact on kids? Because there's only so much we can do, particularly with the code of conduct, because a lot of this stuff does start out of school time. And all that being said means open for suggestions, willing to listen. I don't know how to control this particular aspect of things. Could we ban them? Yes. Does that stop this bad behavior? Probably not, because most of it does start in the space that's outside of our purview, right? Like we can't tell them what to do once they step off of school grounds. So I'm not sure how to make that match. So I feel like what we got into here was sort of a best case scenario, if that makes sense. But I don't think it's a best solution scenario either. And that's just what I want to say about it. I do believe it's particularly having been where I've been in the last 2 weeks and having been so reliant on my cell phone to capture every second of that moment. I get where the kids are coming from. But at the end of the day, I'm also 50-something years old. I know how to use this tool, and we don't teach our kids enough about how to use the tool for good and not for harm. And on that regard, we're giving them a very large piece of equipment to utilize without very little knowledge and information. So if there's anything, and Dr. Chase, I support the fact that you can't approve something that doesn't get rid of it altogether, because I don't know how to make that happy medium and how to make parents say, and how to say to parents, hey, you guys have a say in your kid's education and you should be a part of this decision-making process. And then say, but we're gonna ban your child from using a cell phone. I don't know if that's right, but I will support anyone that can help me find the words that make it right, because I am 100% behind taking this pressure off of our kids' shoulders. I think there's far too much on them in school anyway. I'm clear about that. There's so much calculus. What? Like, I'm not a math person. I get that that's hard. And then I'm adding all this other stuff to them. So anything that we can put in writing that says, hey, we're going to take that off of your kid's plate, gets a thumbs up from me. I don't know how to say that. The words in here felt strong enough to me, but that's me, and that was the rest of us, and so I appreciate hearing from everyone else on that. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Hopefully you heard me though.
We heard you.
Excellent.
All right, thank you, Ms. Halsted. Catherine?
Sure. So I would like to make a quick comment. My notes are an absolute mess, so please bear with me. So while I can appreciate what has been said about the cell phone policy, it's hard for me to completely advocate for the elimination of all cell phones, because as a student, I am primarily exposed to really the benefits of cell phone use in schools. So my perception of this is that the negatives are going to be glaringly obvious to you because that's what you're exposed to. You're the ones who deal with the discipline issues related to cell phone use. And I think this may often overshadow the good that can come from cell phone use in schools, which is what I think I typically am exposed to, and I'm sure Meraki can maybe also contribute her perspective on this. So Gmail, I almost primarily use Gmail through my phone. I don't even really ever access it on my Chromebook. It's so much a part of my life on my phone that I don't really know how I could go throughout a school day without checking an email on my phone. I have Canvas notifications set up on my phone. That's how I know to complete assignments. I have a Google Calendar on my phone. It's how I keep track of all of my meetings and schedules and extracurriculars. So this is with some restrictions on cell phone use in my school. So I have a younger sister in middle school. She goes to A.G. Wright, so they have really cracked down on cell phone policy in the past year. And actually this has caused a lot of problems for my family. My mom is unhappy with it. There have been multiple instances where track practice ends early and we don't know and we're late to pick her up because she's not allowed to text us. So while I can understand and appreciate where you're coming from, it's hard for me to completely side with you. Also because a part of our job as a school system is to prepare students for the real world. And this real world includes workplaces that see the seamless integration of technology like cell phones. So in order to prepare our students for the real world, I would suggest not necessarily an elimination completely of technology, but perhaps more of an emphasis on educating our students about the proper use of technology in a professional environment or an academic setting.
Thank you very much. I would say, for me, I have a little bit of a challenge with a complete elimination for the fact that most of what we see, some of it is during a school day, but a lot of it is beginning out of school, whether it be at home or, after school in the evening, or I just don't see every discipline challenge coming from a cell phone instance in a school day. That does happen too, but I just don't see it as being the sole source. But anyways, I appreciate the conversation about it. I'm definitely, I was one, my kid misbehaved, they lost their phone for 6 months. I was definitely a fan favorite, but, I think that how even our SHAC committee was talking about how we need to do the education in the elementary school, we need to do the education in the middle and continue it in the high. I feel like that's not just a student education, I feel like it's a parent education. I know when my daughter entered in 9th grade at Mountain View, Dr. Semple gave us as a parent group, an education in apps that I didn't even know. I thought the calculator was a calculator. I didn't know my kids were hiding pictures in there. So I appreciated getting educated as a parent of what I need to be watching on my kids' phones. I also, even when my kids were freshmen in college, if I wasn't totally thrilled that you didn't respond back to me, I shut your phone off. And I'd get them, Mom, oh, there you are. So, I know that there is a parent component, and they don't even know, I think, all of the ways that they can help support and educate their own kids. So I definitely appreciate the conversation, and I'm, open to looking at not just what we do, but maybe other areas or other counties as well. So, anything else?
Can we let Meraki weigh in? She's got her hand up.
Sure.
So for the bus and I guess restricting phone usage on the bus, how, if we were to pass that, how would that be implemented or work? Because, would you put your phone in a little box or something? 'Cause I know personally, if I get on the bus, I text my mom hey, I'm here, or hey, there's traffic, I'm gonna be a bit late. So, don't get mad at me if you get that little notification or something. So, I understand in elementary school, especially elementary school, there's no reason kids should be on social media or have cell phones in elementary school. But as kids get older, Catherine touched on it, we need to be able to teach them about how to use social media and phones technology properly, because when they're older, they won't have, the school board or the parents to really make sure that they're using it the right way. So a greater emphasis on education would, I think, also help. And if we want to talk about restrictions in classes, maybe making sure that like during instructional time, phones aren't being used, or like, I feel like different classrooms, different schools, different grade levels definitely should have different rules because, you know, as kids get older, they understand more. So I think it's not an end-all be-all for K through 12. So I think that would be better for what was
Ms. Randall?
Yes,
Chairwoman
Dr.
Randall.
Chase.
Yeah, I would like to speak to a couple of things here.
Sure.
This board, as I recall, we just approved spending $315 per bus per year to have technology that is supposed to make it possible for families to know where the bus is. And so what I'm hearing is one of the reasons we can't implement this is that it would make it difficult for families to know where their child is on the bus. Well, then why the hell did we approve $315 per bus, per tablet, per year for the next 5 years? So that's one that just doesn't hold water for me. Another in terms of educating and that we need to have children learning how to use this. Prefrontal cortex takes a while to develop and can't just educate a prefrontal cortex that isn't there. And so to say that we're going to start educating 15-year-olds about something when they just don't have the neurons appropriately myelinated and pruned yet, in order for that to happen, is a fantasy. And what we're doing is teaching children habits at 15 that they're going to have moving forward of being dependent on this device in a way that may actually harm their mental health. And this needing to constantly be looking to see if people liked you on what you posted and the photograph that you took and the thing that you put up is really having a very negative effect on our children. And I am concerned that we keep ignoring this and we keep kicking it down the road. So I am very, very concerned about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Guy.
I agree with you, but to a certain extent. My son didn't get a cell phone until he was 16. He had to pay for the cell phone himself, and then he had to prepay for the entire year's service. I don't play. I don't give my kids phones because everybody else does. That being said, parents need to parent. We can't parent their children. A lot of these issues are because parents, with all due respect, I'm uncomfortable saying it, because parents aren't parenting. And they're not checking, and they're not doing their due diligence and understanding and watching a YouTube video to figure out like what this app is or whatever. But at some point, we can't do that for them either. Do you know what I'm saying? So
I do, but the problem I have, and this gets back to what Ms. Sigmund said, which is I can choose to parent my child by not giving them that cell phone. And then they're sitting on a bus next to a parent who's not parenting their child and is now exposing my child to what I chose not to expose them to. So I'm not, like, you're saying that we can't be responsible for other people's parenting, but their parenting is affecting everybody else's child.
I'm not disagreeing either. I'm just saying we're between a rock and a hard place with this social media cell phone thing, because truly it needs to be one concerted effort from all the stakeholders to help the children to see their value without the likes, and to, you know, it's really, and we're so different. I don't know how we're gonna get there.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's move on to discussion. Yes.
So cell phones are a giant social experiment that we don't know what the results are going to be when we're done playing this game. And the problem is the technology has exceeded our ability to regulate it and educate our kids on how to use it, and even educate parents on what it is and what they can do, because I will guarantee that most parents have no idea what their kids are accessing on those phones.
Correct, because their algorithms are quite different. Mine look like baby goats, and I'm sure theirs don't. I know. Okay, so let's go on to Regulation 7102.
Yeah, and I just asked for this one to be brought up so that the public is aware of it. And so I don't know if somebody wants to sort of just summarize what 7102 is proposing.
I guess that I can do that. It basically is a regulation that is proposing that we do a little bit more with parents, especially if they have a lunch debt that's greater than 25, that we use more than one mechanism to try to reach out to them. So we're using email, and if they don't have an email address, we're going to use mail. And then also when we reach them, we're going to let them know that there is an application for free or reduced price meals.
And wasn't there something about what the children are allowed to purchase? or-
Correct. I was going to get down to that one, sorry. Kids who are in a negative meal debt will not be allowed to buy cafeteria snacks and beverages. So those will not be sold to them because they have a negative meal debt, because those are a la carte items.
Thank you. I just, in case anybody was unaware that this change was coming, just so that they know and they can let us know if they have any thoughts about it.
Sure.
Ms. Guy?
When you talk about a child having a negative debt, and then they can't buy a beverage, but their lunch that they will still be able to get, that already comes with a beverage?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so they get the one, they are getting a beverage.
It
they're just
comes
not
with a
getting-
drink.
They're not getting a second one.
They're not getting an à la carte item.
Yeah, Madam Chair,
I think it comes with a
could I ask
milk.
for a point of clarification?
Yes.
Actually, Ms. Boatright, can you clarify the difference between the à la carte items versus the FDA meal?
Yeah, so an FDA meal has to meet certain types of regulations. So I think that there's some type of protein on there, there's some vegetables, there's some grains, and there is a milk product. I'm gonna look at Mr. Fulmer. I think it is milk. À la carte items are those items that are sold separately. So it could be some type of snack. So it could be, I think it could be like an ice cream, or it could be a water. It could be, I think that Ms. Buckman would know, it could be one of those Propel water things, because my daughter used to buy those and spend lots of money on them until I cut that off.
So then, say I'm a kid with a negative debt, and I'm not buying a lunch because I brought mine, or maybe I didn't, no, forget it. I didn't bring mine because I don't have any money, all right? And I didn't buy one, and y'all wouldn't know, right? But I can't get a drink. You see what I'm trying to say?
But you can get a lunch.
You can get a whole lunch,
But what-
including.
but I
you
don't
get a
want-
whole
but I don't-
lunch.
But if I didn't get a lunch because I'm a kid and sometimes I do things that don't make sense and I didn't like the taco or whatever, so, but then I can't get a drink. I just don't like
I
that.
think we have water fountains.
Well, we have
don't
water
Yes.
fountains.
I know we have a water fountain. Y'all are being difficult. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Chairman, if I
Ms.
may,
Healy.
this was discussed at the governance committee, and this is not an attempt to keep students from being able to have these, but it is an attempt to not increase the debt to Stafford County Public Schools. And when we are approaching, is it $500,000?
It is.
Yeah.
For unpaid lunch and breakfast, I think it is incumbent upon us to not increase that any more than is prudent. And this is not to say that any student will be turned down for a full meal. So whether it's breakfast and/or lunch, any student, and we have some students with debts approaching $1,000, as I understand it, for a single student. We're not in a position where we can really afford this without having to cut something else. So in some of these cases, part of the discussion was, it may be that the parent is sending money for the meal, but yet the student could potentially be getting the quote, credit meal. I don't want to say it's free because we're paying for it, getting the meal on credit, but then spending the money that was sent for the meal for snacks or other beverages. So this is, that's
And we
where
are
this is
hearing
headed.
that.
And if we had a more modest, debt, I might look at this very differently. But $500,000 is a lot of debt. And when we looked at debts from other jurisdictions, including the, you know, the north and the south, by far, we had the biggest debt, did we not? Yeah, proportional. It's a shame. And we used to be in a position where the local churches and the PTOs, you know, would, and some members of the community would anonymously just help pay down these debt. But I don't think we're at a place where somebody can afford, you know, to help us out with this. So that's the purpose of this policy change.
And also, it
Proposal.
somewhat gets ahead of a new law that's coming into effect July 1st anyway, with regards to making sure that we've done everything possible, back to school nights, anytime you have anything big at school, to make sure that applications for free and reduced lunch are available to families, along with the information. So that kind of gets in front of that by making sure that when we do reach them and talk to them or send something in the mail, that they're getting that information in case they need it.
Yes. All right, is there anything else? All right, thank you. Let's move on to our action items. Action item 9.01, appointment of school board members to serve on the board's Finance and Budget Committee and Governance Committee for the term of July 2023 through June 2024, or FY '24. I've called or heard from the members that would like to serve. I can call it out, but honestly, we can make any changes we want. Dr. Chase, you're coming off of FAB and no governance. And Dr. Warner is going to serve on governance. Ms. Sigmund has agreed to serve on FAB. I will continue to serve on governance. Ms. Healy was going to go to FAB. Ms. Guy was going to FAB. And Ms. Halsted is going to governance.
Okay, I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
And
Second.
thank you. Is there any discussion, change, wish or want? Okay. All those, let's cast your votes.
That's a yes for me, Susan.
Ms. Halsted, do you agree?
Ms. Chair. Madam Chair, I do agree, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Do that, sorry.
Nope, that works. All right, tally the vote. Motion passes 7-0. Going on to the adoption of proposed amendments to policies 3605, 3606, 3608, 3609, 3610, 4113, and review of policy 2602.
So, Madam Chair, I think 2602 should be 3602. I think that must be a typo, because there is no 2602 attached, but there is a 3602 attached.
Okay.
So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I see the 3602
Yeah.
when you open it.
And
Okay.
so I am going to make a motion. I would like to do a division and remove 41, vote for 4113 separately.
Okay.
So I would make a motion that we approve 3605, 3606, 3608, 3609, and 3610.
And 3602?
It's just for review.
Review, got it. Okay. Can I get a second to
Second.
approve? Thank you. All right, is there any discussions on 3605, 06, 08, 09, and 10? Okay. If there's no discussion, please cast your vote. Ms. Halsted?
On those, that's a yes from me.
It's a yes for you. Okay?
Yep.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, I need a motion for policy 4113.
Motion to approve 4113.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? No second?
I'm looking for 4114 in the,
4113? Oh, these are regular?
no, I don't see it.
go to action. Are you on action?
Yeah.
No, you're on consent.
Oh, in action, okay. Oh, the next one. Technology.
There you go. Right there.
Okay. Let's see which one this is.
Classroom.
Oh, I'll make a motion that we approve this. This
We
came
have a
back to
motion. Do you
the-
want to be a second?
Yeah, I'll be a second.
Okay. So the motion to approve 4113. Okay, so I've got a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion?
Yes, so, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I cannot support a proposal to tell our teachers that their classrooms have to be neutral. As I spoke last time, I'm not a favor of beige. And there are certain issues that I don't think should be presented in a neutral fashion. I think we mentioned last time the Holocaust and slavery. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, are there any other discussions on 4113? Dr. Warner?
Madam Chair, I too will not be supporting this. I don't believe that learning is neutral. I think that passion and learning and all those things are not created out of neutrality. But I also think that this is a policy and it's a solution in want of a problem, and I see no reason for it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Healy?
Madam Chair, I'm going to support this. This actually came back to the governance committee, and we did reconsider and did not change the language. And I understand that the clause of concern is classrooms are neutral learning environments that are instructional and supportive of all students. And I think particularly in today's world, I want all our students to feel comfortable, and while it may not be exciting, I think neutral is, has some advantages to not make discomfort for one or more of students in that classroom.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other discussion?
I think I'm going to support it. I think you can learn about slavery, but still say that your classroom is neutral, if I'm being quite honest with you. I'm Black. I learned about slavery from some teachers who didn't appreciate my life. I'd say that classroom was kind of neutral. I'm going to support it just to get over with it. And as long as we're teaching them the facts, then the word neutral, I don't like beige either. I've got a lot of blue in my house, to be quite honest with you, and some orange too. But to me, it's just, neutral's just a word, so.
And honestly, in this instance, I would be less concerned about the word neutral and more about the word learning environment. And I think that there are ways to, make the learning environment exciting, but still, just not showing bias. So I'm going to support this one as well. All right, Ms. Halstead, did you have something to add?
Yeah, if I could just, thank you, Maya, for always being able to see both sides of the coin. Nothing about the word neutral. My concern is that our kids are able to read and write and participate and be loving members of society. Of course, I support this motion, as we have gone back and forth with it for a bunch of times. I just really want to focus on the fact that I've been to so many of the Stafford County schools now and see what the teachers can actually do with the classroom that isn't necessarily neutral, but it is 100% focused on learning for our kids. This isn't meant to divide that or create an environment where they can't do that. And I think our teachers are heads and shoulders above the rest in terms of being able to determine what that means for their students. And for me, that's what's important. So I just want to make sure that our kids can count, they can read, they can do letters, and they're happy in their lives in general. And for me, that's all of it. So. I'm definitely supporting this motion.
Okay, thank you. And I also like the fact that, any issues can be taken up with the school administration and they can handle that. So without any further time, if you would cast your votes. Ms. Halstead?
That's a yes for me.
Okay. And the motion passes 5-2. And let's see, we're going on to superintendent comments. Dr. Taylor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few brief comments this evening. I'd like to once again congratulate our graduates, our class of 2023. Though this was only my second graduating class in Stafford as superintendent, it was our first Chart Your Future and Decision Day graduates. I look forward to many more graduations in the future, but I'm super proud of this particular group of students. I really enjoyed getting to know many of our graduates, and I'm proud to report that our graduates did a great job preparing to excel and have set a positive marker for inspiring and empowering future classes to follow in their footsteps. There's certainly great things to come from next year's graduating class, as our couple of student representatives, I'm sure, would tell us. Special thanks to our teachers and staff for a positive end to a challenging school year. There were so many successes to highlight, and I remain grateful that I get to work with such amazing people. So thank you, teachers and staff, for doing such an outstanding job this year. And thank you to our parents for trusting us with your children. We have so many wonderful things to look forward to in the future, but I sincerely appreciate your trust as we explore and on this journey together. Speaking of graduations, we have a very special staff member who is graduating at the end of the month. After 31 dedicated years, our Chief of Schools, Dr. Tom Nichols, will be retiring from Virginia Schools on June 30th. He's got a lot going on. I don't think he's here with us this evening, but I would be remiss if I didn't point out that Tom was a dedicated teacher, principal, longtime principal, and senior leader in the school division, and we certainly wish him well. He's taking advantage of some opportunities out of state and the opportunity to spend some time with his family. So we're really excited for him and congratulate him. He missed kind of all the retirement hoopla with his announcement this late in the game, so we want to give him some special recognition. Summer may be a quiet time in many corners of Stafford schools, but the Bandy office this is one of the busiest times of year for us. In addition to our summer school and the Great Learning Adventure, you can follow some of our fun on social media with the hashtag #ElevateSummer. So as a reminder, our nutrition services are participating in a food service program at 6 of our elementary schools where we do have food distribution that's actively going on throughout the summer. At Moncure, Anthony Burns, Falmouth, Kate Waller-Barrett, Rocky Run, and Widewater, and also at 2 of our middle schools, Drew Middle School and Shirley Heim Middle School. In addition, the Fredericksburg Regional Food Bank is operating a summer meal program out of North Stafford High School. Please visit our webpage for additional information to learn about our summer feeding programs and access to help resolve some food insecurity in our community. We're also excited to welcome our newest learners, our kindergartners, this August. Enrollment continues online at our mobile enrollment festivals that are happening throughout the county. We have our dates that are posted on our website. I encourage anyone who needs assistance to register online or to go to one of our mobile enrollment festivals or just show up at one of our schools. We'd be happy to assist you in the process of enrolling your upcoming 5-year-old into kindergarten. School supply donations are also being accepted to support families and students through our Collect for Kids program. Though we are still waiting on the General Assembly to approve a state budget, ! I would like to thank the board and our community for your patience in this very protracted budget process. This has been highly irregular, and certainly there's a lot that is riding on our future in this space. But certainly want to thank the board for your fortitude and for your grace and helping to navigate this really difficult time that we're all going through. So thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the board.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to board member comments. Ms. Guy? Is that okay? Yeah, I can start somewhere else. Ms. Healy?
Sure, I'm going to be very quick. When I was at graduation, which was fantastic as usual at Mountain View, I was approached by a few of the staff members about next year's graduation date, which I did not realize is the Friday before Memorial Day, which is totally crazy. traffic-wise and planning-wise and family-wise. And, you know, I certainly would want to address that, and I've talked to Dr. Taylor, and he said that that's something, you know, that there will be a change made. But my request is that come to the board, if possible, next month, at least for information, and so we can make a decision no later than August, because graduation is a really big deal. You know, a lot of times family comes in from out of town, people make plans, and if in fact we're going to have to be doing it during the week, then there's even more reason to have that date in advance. And I think it would be kind of neat for the seniors going in to know, as well as their families, what day it is they're going to graduate. So if that's possible, I would like that to come to us and not wait too long. It's I know we have to calculate hours and days and, you know, make sure we get everything in, but there's just no way that that having graduation Friday of Memorial Day weekend makes any sense to me. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. You want to wait? Okay, you're good? Okay, Ms. Guy?
I definitely want to say happy Pride and to everyone in the community. I'm so thankful for the diversity of Stafford and of our schools and of every human that we have, no matter how they present themselves. And also congratulations to all of the graduates, and especially to their parents and caregivers who got them through. Or if you were like me, you were pushing your kid over that last month. I also just want to say I do appreciate the community members who call us out when they feel like they need to, or who remind us like, hey, you answer to me, ladies. I really appreciate that, because I was that type of person. But if you have questions and you call Maya Guy, you're going to get your answer. So if you want to call me and ask me any questions, anybody, I have no problem explaining my votes. I stand behind my votes. I admit when I don't like my vote anymore. I'm like, oh man, that one was not good, you know, because I'm not perfect, and none of us are. And sometimes you get more information and you're like, oh, I wish I would have known that or thought that or heard about that a month ago. But then you have to move on. Another thing I do want to mention, I mentioned this before, and I put it on my social media for like my professional social media, was the K through 12, what was it? The educational grants that I'm so thankful that someone, Board of Education or somebody, gave us, all us parents, money for our kids' tutoring. They have reached their limit of money to give out, so they're like waitlisting families who might want to apply. But I am putting out a call to all educators, if you have a license in the state of Virginia to teach, and particularly if you live in Stafford, please go on that website and sign up. I was told that they are accepting everyone. You just have to show your credentials, and then you can be a vendor, and then parents can then hire you to tutor, and you get paid directly through the state. When you go there as a parent, because I'm one of the families that signed up early and got it, there's like 5 people in Stafford. So that's not a lot. You know, in Stafford, I think we always get short-gypped. We don't have a lot of restaurants. Now we don't have a lot of vendors for, you can see where my values are, right? Restaurants and education. But yeah, so if you're a Stafford teacher, maybe you don't have to get a part-time job at Target. Maybe you can be a tutor through this. So please, if you need the link, which I know we've said it, Dr. Taylor has sent it out, but I also have it on my social media, or you can email me, and I'm happy to send you the link. And I'm just looking forward to the rest of the summer. I know you guys are busy at Bandy, and I'm going to take some time off. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guy. Ms. Hickman?
Yes, this was my first graduation season. I was recovering from some medical stuff last year and was unable to attend. But I had a fantastic time at both North and Forge, as well as Anthony Burns' promotion ceremony, which is just so fun. To see those little kids. They do it over at a high school, so they get to, sit in the auditorium of the high school when they're like 12. And it's so much fun with their families, and it really was like mini graduation for these kids to, have something to work towards, and in one of the schools that some of the kids at that school actually get to go to in a few more years, so that's kind of fun as well. I do want to encourage families to please, please, please double check the lunch balance for their child, even if they don't think their child has one because you pack them lunch every day, that doesn't matter. They can go through and get the tacos and accrue a balance without our knowledge. And, you know, when we talk about $500,000 in lunch debt, you know, over 10 months a year, that's one new teacher's salary every month we're accruing in lunch debt. That's 10 new teachers a year that we are sitting on lunch debt. And when I think about that, it makes me really sad. And I really want to make sure that the families that are just not aware and don't think it's a thing. Your kid can do it. Kids are doing it all the time. You can talk to your school about setting up restrictions for your child so he's not, you know, in my case, it would be my son, that would be double dipping on lunch, bringing one and taking one. So please look into that. I guess I feel like this often, I have to explain the shenanigans Ms. Halstead says we're getting up to. I participate in like the spring flings and the fall fest at my school. I've been hit by water balloons. I've been pied in the face. I sit under the dunk tank. And we kind of quipped that maybe that's a way we can address some of our 3R needs. You know, if the kids at one elementary school or the parents at one elementary school would pay $1 to hit me in the face with a whipped cream pie, you know, we've got, how many campuses, Dr. Taylor? You know, quite a few. So I just, you know, she said it in jest, but, you know, we are, all of us up here are thinking of the creative ways we can, you know, reinvent the bake sale on the massive scale, countywide scale, to help meet some of our community needs. And if it means we get, you know, hit with water balloons, I'm for it. That's my thing, because I'm zero talent. I don't dance and sing like my colleagues over here. So, you know, I'll take one for the team in another way. But I do want to encourage everyone to enjoy their summer. Just have a good time, get outside, enjoy each other, veg out, whatever it is, and look forward to having everyone come back in August, which is like right around the corner already, even though I feel like we are just out of school. So, and unpack your backpacks, because my kids just did that, and we've been out for 2 weeks.
Thank you, Ms. Sigmund. Dr. Warner?
Oh, thank you, everyone. I'm so sorry I missed graduation this year. I was attending a very special performance of Shrek the Musical that my granddaughters were both performing in Florida. It was just, I'm sorry, I just couldn't resist it. It was wonderful to see the video montage, though, and get caught up, because it is really quite a heart-filling experience to watch these kids graduate from high school. It's a milestone that is just always brings you back and reminds you why you're here. I would like to say welcome to all of the former Brook Point students and former Staffordites who decided to come back and join our administrative teams. I think that's wonderful. And to those people who are working in Prince William, see, you can come back. The water's fine. Just jump right in. Enjoy your summer. Have a safe summer. I hope to stop in with some of the schools and see some of the great learning adventures and some of the summer scholars and see what's going on and connect. And I too have no problem sitting in a dunk tank or taking a pie in the face. It's all in a good cause. I'm more than happy to do it.
Thank you, Dr. Warner. Dr. Chase?
Yeah, so I got to attend Stafford High's graduation, and it was wonderful. And it was also lovely that because we did graduations on multiple days, the superintendent was able to attend multiple graduations. This is the first time the superintendent and I have been at the same graduation, so that was lovely. I also just want to thank all the teachers and counselors and principals and lunch ladies and bus drivers for just giving us a really fantastic year and all the hard work that they did. And, you know, if working at Target this summer is a break from dealing with children, I say have at it, and enjoy your break and come back refreshed in August. And I also just want to give a shout out to our fantastic human resources team and the fact that we are in a better staffing place this year than we were a year ago. That doesn't mean that we aren't still hiring, so please, please, please think about joining Stafford, but kudos to our HR team for recruiting heavily, and thank you.
I would also like to echo, I enjoyed the 2 graduations. I got to attend North Stafford, where I also graduated from, and it was Dr. Turner's first at North, so that was really fun. And then I sat with Dr. Chase at Stafford High School. Mr. Hicks did a wonderful job of getting those students their diplomas, but it was also really cool to see the ones that had the green tassels, who were the first ones in their families to graduate from high school. So that was really, really a proud moment to see. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I would also like to say, when we were talking about meals, if you find yourself or know of someone in a hungry space, I also would like, because I'm in the South End, so hopping over to Fredericksburg is super quick and easy. Renato's in downtown Fredericksburg is offering a nice spaghetti meal, and oh God, that's so good there. So if you know of a hungry family, I also know that there's a couple of other places downtown that will also provide meals and even have them delivered, because my son had community service and that's what he was made to do. When we were talking about the SHAC committee, when they come up here and they were talking about wellness activities, it was funny because we get the Stafford Staff Elevate newsletter, and one of the things they have is a bingo wellness form for the summer. So I'm going to go ahead and start Xing mine out. Recommend a podcast, Mel Robbins and Ed Milet. So there, I got my first space. But I would recommend, if you get to set a summer bingo up for your family, to try things and do things, even if it's make your bed, do the dishes, empty the dishwasher, scoop dog poop, I don't care. But put together your own little summer bingo for your family or your neighbors, or however you would like to do it. It's just a really cute idea, fun thing to do, and just to keep you active, learning, and trying over the summer. I hope everyone has a fabulous summer. And I would like to just announce that we have our next board meeting next Tuesday. It is a it was a closed meeting for evaluations, and then we go into July with our work session and monthly business meeting. As always, you can email any of us, all of us, and we're happy to receive. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.